All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Welcome to the Genesis show. It is currently 11:07 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 14th of July 2025. How are you doing? God bless America. God bless you for tuning in. It's America first. It doesn't matter if you are a Republican, a Democrat, independent, it does not matter. What matters is you believe in the idea of this beautiful country called America. Okay. It is country first before party. Okay. So America first before you are a Republican or a Democrat. And with that being said, the OG, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, President Trump, he participated in a faith gathering in the White House today. Yet we are still uh in what today is Monday? Yeah, we're still on Monday. Okay, because it's 11:08. So yeah, this happened today. We're going to check this out. And of course, we're going to subsequently check out what happened throughout the course of the day and what has been going on, let's say, throughout the weekend. And we're going to see where that leads us. But be nice in the comment section. Okay. Be nice. All right. Be nice. All right. With that being said, enjoy the show.
What a nice sound that is, isn't it? What a nice. Please sit down. Hi, Scott. So I always said that if I ever became president, I would play that all the time, no matter where I went in the building. But I've never really gotten to do it. I wanted it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's so beautiful. And pardon me for being late. We had a great meeting with NATO, the Secretary General, and we're going to do something a little different for this country. We're going to supply weapons to NATO at a large amount. They're going to deliver the weapons, and they're going to pay for 100% of the weapons. So, a little different. A little different. Hi, John. So we're really that's a big thing, and we thought we had 4 deals, Howard, right, with Putin. Somehow they end, and we get off the phone. Oh, that was a very nice conversation. And then he sends missiles into buildings someplace. I said, what was that all about? So anyway, so we're going to be doing that with NATO, and it's fully approved, fully done. We'll send them a lot of weapons of all kinds, and they're going to deliver those weapons immediately to the site of the war, different sites of the war, and they're going to pay for 100% of them. This all was made possible by going from 2 to 5% a month ago when I went there. So, yeah. And those countries, those European countries, and I said, look, we have an ocean. It's not fair that we did, because under the Biden administration, we paid about 3.5 times more than they did. We were in for 350 billion. Got nothing for it. We were in for 350, and they were in for 100. So, which really meant one thing, because you have great business leaders here. It meant very simply that they were better negotiators than our president was. But so this is a very important thing, and hopefully that will come to an end. At the end of 50 days, if we don't have a deal, then we're going to have to do. We have no choice but to do secondary tariffs. You call it secondary tariffs, which are pretty tough, which we don't want to have to do. But let's see what happens. But we thought we had a deal. Numerous times, I'd get home, I'd say, First Lady, I had the most wonderful talk with Vladimir. I think we're finished. And then I'll turn on the television, or she'll say to me one time, wow, that's strange, because they just bombed a nursing home. I said, what? So we don't like that. But I want to thank you all for being here, and welcome to the first ever White House Summit of Faith and Business Leaders. You're really some of the greatest business leaders in the country. When I looked at some of the names, I said, whoa, that's big stuff we have here today. In fact, before I was president, I would have been very intimidated, but now I'm president, so I don't have to. But today we celebrate the core values that built this country: and freedom, hard work, risk-taking, and above all, trust in Almighty God. You're very much into God in this room, and that's very nice. You're business leaders who believe strongly. We have some business leaders that don't believe strongly, and somehow you and I don't like them as much. But I want to thank Pastor Paula White. She's been my friend for a long time. And John for convening this incredible group. Her husband's one of the most talented musicians in the world. Stand up, John. Stand up. Okay? I stole a couple of his songs for the rallies, and he never sued me, so I was very happy. But we all come from the same place, right? So it was great, and we appreciate it, John. Thanks as well to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's doing a fantastic job. He goes on television and he calms the market. I go on television, I rile the market, and I say, we better send him in there, Howard, right? And the market's become so calm and nice. So you're doing a good job, Scott. Thank you very much. You make any deals today? We got a lot of them, boy, I tell you, we have. But the best deal is just sending out the paper. They keep saying, well, he hasn't made the deal. Oh, we made a number of deals, but why isn't he doing deals? Because the paper is better than any deal we can make. Do you understand? The people in this, Kevin, they asked you that question this morning. You were great this morning, but they said, well, when is he going to start making deals? The next time we could say, just no, every time he sends out a document that you have to pay 35% or 25% or 50%. Or in one case, 100%. Those deals, you can't beat those deals, but we're still willing to talk. And they all, literally every country wants to make a deal. We're in a good position. You would call it a position of strength. I don't talk that way because I'm a politician now, unfortunately. And I don't want to talk about strength. I just want to say we have to be treated fairly because we were ripped off on trade and the military for, we protected other nations. Nobody paid us. Nobody did anything for us. Nobody helped us. And that's much different. NATO's a much different situation now. When I got in, I believe we were paying for 100% of NATO. And now they're paying, they went from 2%, but they were paying 1% to 5% that they're paying. That's a big difference. It's about $1 trillion difference. And they're wealthy, for the most part, wealthy countries. And some of them they're among the most powerful, among the wealthiest countries in the world. So they're going to start paying, and they want to pay. And we had a great meeting about 1 month ago. That set the stage for what happened here, but it's very important. So I want to thank Scott for being here. I want to thank Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. You are doing a good job, Howard. Am I right when I say I really don't want deals? I just want the paper to get sent? Right? It's true. I don't know if this is on television. Yeah, it's always on television. SBA administrator and a great person, cabinet member, a friend of mine for a long time, Kelly Loeffler. Kelly, you're doing great. She's small business, right? She only does small business, but when you add it all up, it's the biggest bank in the world by a factor of about 10, right? She's doing a great job. And director of the White House Faith Office, Jenny Korn, who's also amazing. Thanks, Jenny. From the earliest days of our republic, the steady compass of faith has guided the strong hands of American workers, builders, and entrepreneurs like really no other. Our country was founded by pilgrims and believers, and every generation since, Americans of faith have built our communities and forged new industries and enriched our country by millions and millions of people and ways. John D. Rockefeller, J.C. Penney, Charles Goodyear, Truett Cathy, and frankly, we have people I could name right in this room sitting here that their names are every bit as big as that. They were inspired by their love of God, and now the proud tradition continues with all of you. And this group reminds us, as a nation that prays is a nation that prospers. And you see that I think one of the reasons we went so bad is they really wanted to take God and religion out of your lives. And there was nobody to, look up to. There was just nobody. It was, we were freewheeling, and we can't freewheel. Now we have to bring religion back into the country, and we're starting to do that, I think, at a very high level Paula, a very, very high level. You see churches are starting to fill up again. Under the Trump administration, America is prospering and America is winning like never before. Our country is back. So I was in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and then a month ago we were in Europe with all of the NATO countries, European countries, and plus Canada. And almost everyone said almost the exact same words. They said, 1 year ago, your country was dead. Terrible term, but that's what it is. Your country was dead. We thought it was finished. And now you've got the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true. This is the hottest country. Did you see they found $25 billion of essentially profits last night? They said, where did it come from? It came from management, but it came from tariffs. And it came from, good business skill. And I've always made money. Now I'm making it for you people. I've had good days and bad days, but in good days and bad days, I always found a way to make money, and we have to do that for our country. But and we did 188 billion in Scott just now, 188 billion in tariffs, 188, and we haven't even started yet. That's only for cars and steel. We actually have barely started. The economy is roaring, business confidence is soaring, incomes are up, prices are down, and inflation is dead. It's dead. We have a bad Fed chairman, really bad. If he would lower the rates, and I tried being nice to the guy, it doesn't help. He's like a knucklehead. No, he's a knucklehead. A stupid guy. He really is. Each point, think of this, each point costs us $360 billion. Billion. 1 point, $360 billion. 2 points, you got $700 billion. And we're way high. We're at 450 or 425, 450. And how do you go borrow money at 1% when the Fed has you at 450? And, it's not that easy. I get angry at them. Why are we paying so much? Because he's got you up at this number. And we should always be the lowest. Now that we're doing great, we have no inflation. Think of it. Our stock market hit record highs. Everything's hitting a record high. We're really running good with no inflation. And we should be at 1%. We should be less than 1%. I think Switzerland is the lowest at like 0.5%. We should be lower because without us, there's no world. I don't want to sound overly aggressive, but without us, you have no world. And we've put our country on solid footing. We had a man as president who was the worst administration, worst president in the history of our country. We've had some bad ones, but he's the worst ever. What he did at our border can never be forgotten. 25 million people allowed to pour into our country, all unchecked, unvetted, murderers, gang leaders, gangsters, people that you don't want in our country under any means, terrorists. We have many terrorists in our country, and we're watching them close. Tom Homan, by the way, is doing a phenomenal job. Kristi Noem is doing a phenomenal job. We had last week, it was reported, nobody, not one, even I don't know if I believe that number, but it's done, the numbers are done by liberals. So they said, did you know that? They said we had nobody, zero, cross our border. It's the first time that ever happened. Zero. Did you hear that? It's like crazy. But we have people from mental institutions, insane asylums even. That's a mental institution on steroids, essentially. But we had people coming into our country. We can't have them. And we have to get them out. But we can never forgive this administration, this past. And I'm okay with administrations. I mean, I can go through a Democrat administration, say, hey, look, they worked hard, they tried hard. But the things that they did to this country, we can never, ever forget it. From the rigged elections to the border, to the transgender for everybody, from men playing in women's sport. You ever take a look at some of these records? There was a long-distance race, a marathon, where they had a great female runner, a number of them, but they had one in particular, and they had just an average male runner who had transitioned. He won the race at the end of the day by 5 hours and 14 minutes. They waited for 5 hours. The weightlifting records are better, though. The weightlifting records are better. You know, the way they took a record that hasn't been broken for 18 years. 18 years. And, you know, they'd add a quarter of an ounce on each side of the barbell. And they'd just a little tiny piece of stuff. She'd go up and she couldn't get it up. And this guy comes along. Have you lifted before? Yes, at a low level. He was a low-level lifter as a man, but transitioned. And he goes up to that thing. Bing, 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 bing. Could have done it all day long. Broke the record by 119 pounds. The whole thing is crazy. The swimming records are pretty good, too. You got to see that. I told the story. You had this great group of young ladies, and they grew up with each other because, you know, they sort of swam at the top level. And they were swimming, and one girl was seriously injured. She looked left, and she saw the same girl she grew up with, Kelly, in California. Same girls, you know, that young age, they sort of rise to the top. She looked to the right, she saw the same girls, but there was this giant standing right next to her. And he had transitioned. You probably heard this. He had transitioned. And she'd never seen her before. And when the race was started, he blew by her so fast that she suffered massive windburn. They had to take her. It's true. And he got out of the race, and he went had a little lunch, and then he came back and watch the rest of the young ladies finish up. The whole thing is crazy. And it's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning to women. But it is what it is. But what they did to this country, and we ended all of that, as you probably know. We ended the woke. The woke stuff is no longer in favor. But we're doing fantastically. Wages for blue-collar workers have surged by the most in over 60 years. Gas prices have reached the lowest level in 5 decades. Actually, we're going to see some really good numbers. We're, you know, drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill. I got to make sure that people can afford to produce the gas. But the gas has gone to the lowest level in decades. And you're seeing $1.99, $1.98, and I saw $1.95. At certain states, not California, because every time it goes down, they add taxes onto you. You're at $6, $7. They just add taxes. All they do is they keep adding taxes. Terrible governor, doesn't know what he's doing. He may be a candidate, but if you go by success, you can't have him be a candidate. And on Friday, it was announced that the United States Treasury ran a budget surplus. Is that true, Scott? In June, for the first time in many, many decades. Wow. I didn't know that. That's a good one, too. I'm going to have to put that in my repertoire, Scott. But the biggest victory of all came 10 days ago when I signed the one big, beautiful bill into law. Right? And just as I promised, we did something that was amazing. You know, everybody was against it. I wanted it. I know Scott and Howard liked the idea of it too, but it was very risky because they've never done anything like it in terms of the size. It's the biggest bill ever passed, of its kind ever passed, by far. And they were going to cut it into 2, 3, or even as many as 7 bills. And I said, the problem is that in the one big bill, everybody gets something. When you cut it into 7s, there are 4 or 5 of them, or 3 of them, right, Kevin, that you get nothing. All they're going to do is fight it. You'll never get them passed. And so we went with it. I was on a show called Deface the Nation. Have you heard of it? They're so bad. They're so bad. These people, they're so average. But I was on this show, Deface the Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, President Donald J. Trump on Deface the Nation. No, but they're all so bad. But we were on the show, and she said to me a question. She said, what would you call this bill? Would you want to have it called One Big Beautiful, or would you rather see it? I said, what I want is one great, big, beautiful bill. And Speaker Mike Johnson, John Thune, they were watching, and they said, what a great name for the bill. We actually ended up calling it that. We took the great out. I actually liked it even better. One great, big, beautiful. But they said, let's a little bit of a low key. But we got to pass. But we got to pass because there's something for everybody. And there are things that people don't like, but you need them for the country. You know, you have to do some things that are great for the country, but they wouldn't necessarily get the votes. And we got the votes. Think of it, not one Democrat vote. All the goodies that we got, not one Democrat voted in either the Senate or the House. And we're talking about tax cuts and business. I mean, so many different things that are so good, right? Not one Democrat vote went with us, not one. So we had to get almost every, in the House we got 218 to 2. Think of that, 218 to 2. Nobody could do that. It's never been done. And that says, you know, and we have Rand Paul Jr., who's a guy from, we call him Rand Paul Jr. because he always votes no, a guy named Massey. He always votes no. We had another guy who I helped very, very strongly, helped him with a very personal situation, got him through it. And he voted no. I said, thank you very much, I appreciate it. And then we went to the Senate, and you had, of course, Rand Paul, who always votes no. And they call him Just Say No. I think they think it's, no, I think they and you know, I got him elected. I had to go to Kentucky twice to do rallies to get him elected twice. But they forget, a lot of politicians forget. And then we had a couple of others. Susan Collins, she's another one, Just Say No. She always, brutal. And we had some people, Tillis, I guess, was a no, right? He was a no. And they said he was brave. He said no to the president, but he resigned the following morning. So anyway, that was terrible, I thought. But we couldn't lose more than 3. And we had 3 that said no. And so we won that 50 to 3. So it's pretty tough. And a senator came over to me and said, I can't believe you won the House. Great guy, this senator, Eric Schmidt, who's doing a great job. He said, I can't believe you won the House. I said, actually, so remember 218 to 2. We needed 3, so we could have lost 3. We actually only lost 2. I said, no, actually, the Senate was tougher than the House of the 2. That question's asked to me, who was tougher? I'd say the Senate was tougher, actually, amazingly. Shouldn't have been. We had a slightly bigger margin in the Senate proportionally, but it was brutal. It was, they said, sir, we have 12 hard no's. You know, a hard no is not recoverable, right? This was at 2:30 in the morning. Mike Johnson called up. It could be 20, but it's at least 12. So could you call them, sir? And I said, what time? I said, 2:30 in the morning. And we have to win, right? We can never give up. The people in this room, right? You never gave up. My supporter right from day one, and her husband with a bad damn back, right? How's his back? Is he okay? Every time I see him, he's got a bad back, but he's got a lot of cash, so. A lot. He's got a lot of cash. But no, they're great people. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. You were there right at the beginning, you know, always was there. But we have, so we have a situation where we call up these people at 2:30 in the morning, and I called up. I got along with them all great. I liked them, but they're tough. You know, they're congressmen. When you're a congressman for 20 years or you're a senator for years, you're smart, and you're a survivor because you go through all sorts of hell. But I called up Congressman. I said, Jim, hi, Jim, how are you doing? And he said, fine, sir. I said, family's good, yeah. He said, sir, you have my vote. I never said what I was calling about. I said, I do, thank you very much. But how do you know what I'm calling you about? Well, he said, sir, I've been your friend for 2.5 years. You've never called me during normal hours. So I assume that if you're calling me at 2:30 in the morning, you're not calling me to ask me, how's the family doing? I said, yeah. So, it's pretty good. So I called up everyone. I think everyone with the exception of one. I had to speak a little bit, but I call up, sir, you have my vote. Thank you. Sir, you have my vote. Think of that. And we got 12 votes in a matter of, I called back 20 minutes later. I said, you got all the votes. That's spirit, right? That's spirit. They wanted to maybe hear. They wanted to have a little love. You know, the sad part is that some of the best people are the people that don't get any publicity because they go with something because it's good. So a guy like some of the people I'm talking about, but some of the people where you didn't even have to call, they vote yes, 100%. You don't have to waste any time with them. You don't have to beg them, come on, you can do it, come on, let's have lunch, let's have dinner. And then you have other guys that want you to suffer. I mean, some of these people that I just mentioned, whose names I just mentioned, you got to go through hell. And the ones that are really good and they love the country and they're doing right. I mean, what's the alternative? You know, the alternative here, you're getting the biggest tax cut in history. And with the Democrats, you're going to have the biggest tax increase in history. Now, we could go into 100 other details. They're equally as crazy. So I said, so what's the difference? So you're going to say no, and you're going to have the biggest tax cut in history this way, and you're going to have the biggest tax increase the other way, and you'll probably end up in a depression, because if you ever did that, it would be a shock to the whole world. That's what happened in 1929. I said, so you're going to vote for the other side? Well, sir, I'll do what's really appropriate. You know, the losers. But you have that. Really, they're grandstanders. You know, you have grandstanders, and you have them in every business. And the Democrat has far fewer. They're grandstanders. But, you know, the one thing about them, they have bad policy. They're evil people in many ways, but they stick together. You don't have it where you don't have, I don't want to use too many names, but you don't have a Mitt Romney in the midst who makes you suffer. You don't have some of the people that I mentioned who make it so hard. They make it so hard. And the alternative is one of two things. You can either get all these things and make the economy strong, or you're going to literally have perhaps a depression where you people so rich, so beautiful, so nice to look at, will be totally busted. And let's see how long your wife stays with you. You're beautiful. She'll stay with you for about 3 weeks, and she'll say, darling, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore, darling. I'm leaving you. I said to one guy, he's a very, very unattractive man, but he's smart and he's rich. And I said, you better hope we get this thing passed, because your wife will be gone within about 2 minutes. He said, you're right. But so we had a tremendous success, and it gives you the biggest tax cut in American history, the largest spending cut in American history, and the largest border security investment of all time. And again, we're doing great on the border. I almost say, why do we need it? We have such good numbers, but you need it. Ultimately, you're going to need it. I built hundreds of miles of border wall. Without that, you could have never had the results that we had. But to lift up the American family, we increased the child tax credit and made school permanent. We made it all permanent, the school choice. And we expanded school choice. And for every newborn child, we created what's called the Trump accounts. And this was Michael Dell. I don't know if Michael Dell's here, but Michael Dell, well, you tell him I mentioned his name, because it's true. He would call me for 3-4 years. I didn't know Michael. I just know he's a great success story and a great guy. That's all he talked about, was the account where you put $1,000, and as a baby is born, $1,000 into an account, and you let it be invested by, I guess you pick out some good money determinant or fund or index. And I guess at a certain age, like when they're 30, goes earlier than that, but when they're 30, they're supposed to have like $75,000. That would have a huge impact on their lives. And it could even be more than that. So that passed. And you know, it's funny, that was one of the easiest things we had to get passed. Can you believe it? I thought, so many people loved it. They actually call it the Trump accounts. And I didn't fight for that name, right? I didn't fight for that. I said, that's a very great honor. But Michael Dell was amazing. That's what he said he's going to invest billions of dollars doing it for children. He's going to put a lot of his money into it. But even more importantly than the economic success, we're restoring the spirit of our country. America is once again an optimistic nation. We were so down. It was depressing. We were so down. That's why I ran again. I got cheated. They rigged the election. But I said, you know, if I didn't think I won, I would have never run. Because that's like a poll, right? You lose, you lose. It's worse than a poll. But I saw the lack of spirit in this country. For 4 years, it was a dark, horrible place. And for people of religion, who were arresting your pastors, they were arresting if you went to church and you had a service outside. And the reason outside, because you had the COVID. And you could go outside. They'd arrest everybody for even having the service. I'll tell you, religion took a big hit because of the way they treated all of us. And we now have a confident nation, an optimistic nation, and we have one nation under God, and we'll always keep that term. And we're bringing back, very importantly, and not just evangelicals or Protestants or this, all religions, we're bringing them back into our country. As president, I've ended the radical left war on faith, and we're once again protecting religious freedom like never before in our country. We're protecting it like never before. We're getting rid of the Johnson Amendment that didn't let the pastors and ministers and everybody speak about politics. Now you're able to speak about politics, Paula. You can say, I don't like that guy, and they don't take away your tax-exempt status. You know, they take away tax-exempt. And I'll tell you, remember when that started? It was at the meeting room before I ran, 2015, a year before the election. And I was with 50 faith leaders. They were great, very well-known people, mostly Protestant, but you had rabbis. You had an imam, 2 imams. And we were talking, and I said, I'd love to have your endorsement. And they looked at me like, what? I'd love to have your endorsement. We have such respect for you, and your control are really very powerful. And they looked at me, they didn't say anything. Do you remember that? And I said, what's wrong with these people? I didn't know about the Johnson Amendment. Don't forget, I never did this stuff before. It wasn't like I ran. I was on the other side. I was on the same side as you. You write contributions to people that you like. But I never ran, so I didn't know about the Johnson Amendment. And I called Paula and Jenny aside. I said, could I ask you, when I said I'd want your, support, your political support and endorsement, they looked at me very weird. What's going on? Well, sir, there's a thing called the Johnson Amendment. And if they even speak about anything having to do with politics, they will immediately take away their tax-exempt status. And if they lose the tax-exempt status in your world, that means you might as well close up your church. I said, you got to be kidding. So I can't really. And I told them, we had another meeting a couple of months later, and I said, you people in theory are the most powerful people. You're more powerful than man or woman because we have more than 50. Let's assume men and women are 50-50, but you have 80% between all the different religions. I said, you have more power than anybody, but you're not allowed to use your power. I said, we're going to get rid of that because people want to hear what you have to say more than anybody else, pretty much. And we did get rid of it, and we launched something that's great. And now you see people, if they like somebody, they're able to talk about that somebody for office, right, Jenny? We're able to talk about a certain politician that has your values and likes your religion. It's okay. And we got rid of that. Was Lyndon Johnson, a very powerful guy. And he had a problem with a pastor, I think in Houston. And the pastor was not a fan of his, and he put the clamps on the guy. He really did. Amazing, actually. And we opened it up. I looked at him, and we're up 68 stories in the air at Trump Tower, and in this beautiful conference room. I look down, I see people walking up and down the street. I said, that means that person walking up and down the street, any one of them have more power than you do because you're not allowed to even talk about it. You were even afraid to talk about it, but they're not afraid any longer, and I think they appreciate it. As president, I've ended the radical left war on faith, and we're once again protecting religious freedom instead of destroying it. And God is once again welcomed back into our public square. It's very important. And I stopped the Biden administration's persecutions of Christians and pro-life activists. They would put people in jail if they even uttered the word. And, well, look at me. I mean, look what happened to me. I was under investigation more than the late, great Alphonse Capone. Think of it. Al Capone would kill people for dinner. If he left the room and he didn't like them, he'd have them shot, killed, buried under a building someplace as part of the foundation of a building. They're all over the place. And I said I had more time under investigation than the legendary Alphonse Capone or probably anybody else. But I had a lot of good people with me, and most importantly, I had the base with me at a level that it actually became stronger. The one thing I did that was very helpful, I was indicted 5 times. Think of that. Indicted. That wasn't a word that was in my father's looking down, my mother's looking down. That my son's not supposed to be indicted, I think. I got indicted 5 times, impeached 2 times. All bullshit, right? All terrible stuff. And I got impeached for making a perfect phone call. Good luck. Congratulations. I had a guy come up to me, a secretary of energy from before. Sir, could you call up, of all people, President Zelensky? And I called him. I actually held off. He must have come 10 times. Please, sir. It's because they wanted to do business or something, oil and gas. Who the hell knows what they wanted? You can imagine what they wanted, but they wanted, would you call up President Zelensky? And I did. When I finally got him, I said, congratulations on your win. He had just won. This is early in the process. Should have never been, that war should have never taken place, by the way. If the election weren't rigged, that war would never be happening right now. Millions of people being killed. That war would never be happening. But would you call up? So I say, hello, President. How are we doing? Everything good? Good. Congratulations on your big victory. Wonderful job. Great, great, great. Hang up. That's it. I get indicted for making a phone call. I told that secretary, who wasn't the smartest bulb, he wasn't Rick Perry. You don't want him on your debate team. Let me put it that way. Rick, you're not going to be on my debate team, Rick. But he's the one that asked me to do it, Rick Perry. And I said, thanks, Rick. That was a wonderful suggestion. I just got indicted over your stupid call. This is what we have to put up with, right? This is what we have to do. We have to put up with things. But it's been an amazing period of time, and we've straightened out so many bad things in this country. I created a Presidential Commission on Religious Liberty and established the Department of Justice Task Force to eradicate anti-Christian bias, because you have a very big anti-Christian bias that you don't think about and you don't hear about it. I established the White House Faith Office to defend and represent people of all faiths, and it's located in the White House. You've never had an office. We've never had that. And Jenny and Paul are there all the time, but we have it in the White House, so people can call up and complain, or they can call up and say, you're doing a great job, whatever. But we have it actually in the White House. Nobody's ever done that. We've restored the fundamental principle that God created 2 genders, male and female. That was a tough one. And we're defending parents' rights where the parents' rights have been taken away from them in schools. You look at some of these school boards, it's like they're brutal dictatorships, and we brought it all back. The parents have the control now, and last Monday, we effectively eliminated the infamous, as I said, Johnson Amendment, such a big deal, and various other amendments and things that really took away your free speech. That's what they've done. They've taken away free speech. I also want to recognize the incredible contribution of our great First Lady, Melania, and she says hello. And Melania did the Be Best initiative in supporting children in our foster care system. She visits a lot of children, a lot. Yesterday we went to the game, the soccer game. I don't know if you saw it in the Meadowlands. It was incredible. And she's always thinking about the children that have a hard time and helping America's young people reach their fullest potential. And it's remarkable to think that it was only 1 year ago this week that my time on earth nearly ended. And if you look at that, God was with me, because that's something that, in theory, I should not be with you today. Well, I believe that, and I believe it, that my life was saved by God to really make America great again. I really believe that. I think I have a son, he's a great shooter, like a championship shooter. Don and Eric was a great shooter, both of them. But they said that at that distance with that gun, you didn't have a chance. And we turned the head at the right time, didn't we? Huh? We turned the head at the right time. So I don't know. Some people say it was lucky, and some people say something else. I say something else. I think God helped us. So I always believed in giving back to this nation, a nation that we love so much, and I know that everyone lives by that same sacred principle. The people in this room do, I can tell you. I hate when I see complainers, people that complain and they don't do anything about it. Like in many cases, the media, not all of the media. I must have had something because we won in a landslide. Think of it, we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won the popular vote. We won there's a district vote that's very interesting. It's where the whole map looks red for Republican, by the way. But the whole map came out, I think it was 2,750 to 505. Think of that. That's broken into little districts, little areas. We had an unbelievable election, and so I don't know, somebody said, yeah, how do you win without the press? But we have a hidden press, and the real hidden press and the hidden vote is the people and the word of mouth. Word of mouth is more important than the press, and they see what we do, and they see how we do it. I want to thank all of you and your great communities, and it's a blessing to our country that you're here, and a blessing to our country that you become so successful and so great. And people look up to you, have no idea. You don't know. We take things for granted. You don't know. The people in this room are amazing. I even, looking at that list, I really said, that's something great. And you're all believers. I think, Paula, you wouldn't have invited people that were, not a lot of, is there an atheist in the room? Any atheists? I don't think so. I wouldn't want to raise my hand if I were. I'd be in big trouble. No, you invited all people that are outstanding in faith and success, and it's a very noble group. But it's because of the patriotism and goodwill of citizens like you that America remains strong and faithful and free. And together we're going to continue the fight for Judeo-Christian values of our founding fathers. We'll grow our economy. We'll defend our sovereignty. We'll protect our children. When you look at the job we did, I was just thinking, because President Putin said it to me, and other leaders said it to me, when they looked at those B-2s go in, and think of it, they flew for 37 hours straight. We had 52 tankers, the gasoline tankers, and they rode along with them at different aspects, and they refueled. And not a screw was broken, not a mark was on those planes. Every engine was perfect. When they landed, they were just as good as when they took off. Think of that, 37 hours and about 40 minutes through a very rough territory. And those machines worked incredibly well, and literally not a problem. And when I honored the flyers, we did it last week, I also honored the mechanics, the people that took care of those machines. And I said it's equally important. And you compare that, same country, you compare that with what happened with Jimmy Carter. It was a sad situation. The helicopters were coming down and they were crashing, and the men were all over the place trying to get the hell out of there. And it turned out to be a hostage situation and horrible thing. And probably it was one of the things that cost him the election, certainly. But when you think of that and you see this was, in terms of perfection, they think it was a perfect military. We sent the planes to Guam. Everybody thought we were flying to Guam. And they said, oh, they're going to Guam. Well, Guam's out of the way. And at the same time, we had some others going a different direction. I watched horrible CNN. You have to watch sometimes your opposition, and they are opposition. And I saw that they had basically the plans of when we're going in, when we would be entering Iranian oil airspace. And I said, that's weird. And I called the general, Raisin Kane. He's fantastic. I said, General, and Pete Hegseth, I said, I'm watching newscasts where they're saying what time you're taking off tomorrow and what time we're going to be entering the very dangerous airspace, the worst air space anywhere there is, anywhere that in the world. I said, what do you think? Sir, we'll be fine. We blow them away, we'll be fine. Because, they went those B-2s with 7, and they were surrounded by a lot of great planes. F-22s, the most beautiful plane ever built. The fighter jet, F-35s. Had a lot of different planes going with them. I said, but wouldn't a surprise be better? Yeah, it would be better. I said, well, then let me cancel it, and let's make it at a different time. So the day before, I canceled it. I said, I'm canceling it. We'll do it sometime within the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, but I'm canceling it. And then I had a meeting, and I said, I have an idea, because I got slightly big coverage, to put it mildly. So everyone knew it was being canceled. I said, let's leave at the exact same time we were supposed to leave, the following day. And we took off, and that's when the planes went out to Guam and this and that, and we took off. And that was the only time, and they said it, that was the only time they knew we wouldn't be coming in, was the exact same time that I came. I said, let's do something. And they flew in, and they were stealth, incredible planes. They were stealth. And they hit every bomb, hit their mark. Every single bomb hit the mark. It was unbelievable how they did it. And then they said, skedaddle. Skedaddle means get the hell out of there. They had to get out of that airspace. But it was an amazing thing, and I think it was so great for our country in so many different ways. You see so many incompetent people, like the way we left Afghanistan with Milley and all these incompetent, stupid people. And Biden, it was him. Leave everything behind. We'll leave jets behind. I said to Milley, so you mean to tell me, because I was going to leave. We would have left earlier than them, but we were going to leave with dignity and strength. I said to Milley, you mean you want to leave a jet fighter behind? Sure, it's cheaper if we do that. I said, wait a minute, give me a tank of gas and I'll fly it to Pakistan, or I'll fly it to someplace, or I'll fly it back home. Why is it cheaper? Oh, it's just cheaper. That's when I realized the guy was grossly incompetent, okay? He's telling me it's cheaper to leave a plane than it is that the planes cost $150 million apiece. Let's leave it, sir. It's just great. And they did. They left all, I was taking everything, but they left it behind. But when you look at what happened and compare that to what we have now, we have a real great machine. I rebuilt the military in my first term, and we left some of it to Afghanistan and the Taliban, and they have their parades. I hate those parades. Every year they have a parade wheeling down our equipment on some very unattractive street. That's, their Fifth Avenue. They show our equipment going down. It's getting older and older, but I hate to see it. But we're going to be working together to protect our children, and with the grace of God and blessing of Providence, we will lead our country to heights that it's never seen before. I think we're going to be more successful in many ways, but I think we're going to be more successful than we've ever been. And I do think this, if we didn't catch it, if we would have lost this election, our country was finished. I think we were run by incompetent people. We were run by an auto pen that nobody knows who used it. I think it's one of the biggest scandals in the history of our country. We were run by an auto pen. Nobody has any idea who used it, including Biden. He doesn't know. He saw that interview yesterday. He knew nothing. So it's a very terrible. We're against an evil group of people, and they're very smart, very smart. He's not, but they are. They took over the Oval Office. They actually took over the Oval Office. We can never let a thing like that happen again. So, Paul, I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank Jenny, and most importantly, I want to thank the people in this room. You really are incredible people, an inspiration to our country. And I know you don't know that. You don't think it because you're too busy working. But you are. You're a great inspiration to young people that want to be just like you when they grow up. And thank you very much for being here. And it's a great honor. And, Paul, I think you're going to say a prayer. I'll stay with you while you say your prayer, okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. You guys may be seated for just a moment. And he is our greatest champion of faith of any president that the United States of America has ever had. We are deeply grateful for that. We are very honored that you are all here with us at the White House, and where faith is not sidelined, but has a seat at the table. And as we gather today as leaders of industry, of vision, of faith, I believe that today is going to be very enlightened. And I'm so overwhelmed. We're getting ready to worship and pray and to just think that prayer, worship, and doing good works is welcome back into the White House. President Trump is a historic and a bold move established the White House Faith Office to recognize some simple truths: that America is strongest when faith is engaged and not silenced, when believers are activated and they are not isolated. This administration understands that people who are of faith, who are entrusted with wealth and influence as you are essential to building a stronger, freer, and a more compassionate nation. You're more than just CEOs and business leaders and entrepreneurs. You're stewards on divine assignment, builders of legacy, and vessels of impact. You've been called by God to his kingdom for such a time as this. And together we are witnessing something absolutely remarkable. More has been accomplished by this administration in the past 5 months than in the last several decades. And that is due to the leadership of President Trump, his administration, and the great team he has assembled. America's spiritual and moral foundations have been restored, and it's only the beginning. Today's not just a luncheon. It is a moment of divine alignment, a commissioning. And we believe that God is raising up business leaders who don't separate faith from enterprise, but who see their platforms and their pulpits as their businesses and instruments for eternal impact. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with great reverence and expectation. Your word declares in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" Lord, we do perceive it. We see the stirring of your hands, reviving hearts, reforming systems, raising up leaders at this very hour. We thank you for our great president, President Trump, for his life, his courage, his clarity, and an unwavering defense of faith and freedom. May your wisdom guide him and your protection always surround him according to your word that does not return void. In Psalm 89:21, that you say, "My hand will sustain him, and surely my arm will strengthen him." We bless every person in this room, those you've entrusted this wealth, strategy, and vision to, according to 1 Timothy 6. That you tell us, do not put our hope in riches, but be rich in good works, generous and ready to share. So they are your Josephs in Egypt, the wise stewards in famine. They are your Daniels in Babylon, the uncompromising voice, and your Lydia in Philippi, the ones who expanded the kingdom. Let this be more than a meeting. Let it be a movement where we come together and converge to bless communities, care for others, and reach nations, empowered by your purpose and your grace. Unite us with the common cause to use our time and talent for thy kingdom come, thy will be done in the earth as it is in heaven. In the mighty matchless name of Jesus, we pray these things and come in agreement. Bless this food and bless everyone. And everybody said, amen. And by the way, it is Secretary Howard Lutnick's birthday, so I'll wish him a very happy birthday. We are so grateful for your time, President, and my husband John's going to worship. At any time that you have to go, we know that you have spent more than enough time, and you are running the country exceptionally for us, and we are all so grateful. So he will stay as long as possible, but will you let President know how much we love and appreciate him? To remain.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here in the Oval Office, one of the great places of the world, as we make a historic announcement about the Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield. That's something we want And Ronald Reagan wanted it many years ago, but they didn't have the technology. But it's something we're going to have. We're going to have it at the highest level. I want to thank Secretary Hegseth, who's been fantastic, and Secretary Rubio, and Space Force Vice Chief of Space Operations, General Mike Gutlein. I also want to recognize Senators Dan Sullivan, Kevin Cramer, and Jim Banks, fantastic senators, great talents, great political talents, and people that love our country. In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful, and now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air. I'm also pleased to report that the one big, beautiful...
All right, I'm back. I am back. Here we go.
Trump is working the phones personally, trying to convince some of his most ardent MAGA supporters to pull back on their public attacks on Attorney General Pam Bondi over the Jeffrey Epstein case. This, as one of the president's fiercest supporters, conservative activist Laura Loomer told Politico, quote, there should be a special counsel appointed to do an independent investigation of the handling of the Epstein files so that people can feel like this issue is being investigated and perhaps take it out of the Attorney General's hands, because I don't think that she has been transparent or done a good job handling the issue. With us now, CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Hodig, who just so happens to be having a book about special counsels, a highly anticipated work coming out shortly. Ellie, a special counsel in this case, what would that special counsel investigate? What are even the legal issues surrounding the Epstein case at this point?
Well, John, if there were a special counsel appointed, it would be unlike any other special counsel in our history, really, for two reasons. First of all, if you look back at the history, going back to Watergate when it was called independent counsel, and through the ensuing 50 years, the law tells us that there's not supposed to be special counsel just because there's a messy situation or just because the Attorney General has done a bad job. It's supposed to be reserved for where there's a conflict of interest or other extraordinary circumstances. And historically, those conflicts of interest have always touched on the president himself or other powerful people around the president. Now, whether there is such a conflict of interest, presumably Pam Bondi might know. We wouldn't know at this moment. The other thing is special counsel historically and under the law is not supposed to be appointed just to tell a story, just to get to the bottom of something. It's supposed to be reserved for actual prosecutorial scenarios where there's some reason to think there should be criminal charges. The FBI last week, in its memo looking at the situation, said there's no basis to think anyone else should be charged. So look, this is Pam Bondi's decision, and it's going to be a tough one.
What are the actual outstanding legal issues in this case? When people are criticizing Pam Bondi, what is it? Is it about actual legal things?
It's a great question, right? It's important that we separate what people are super interested in, myself included, I think a lot of us in the media included, but where there's some actual legal work to be done. And the only real legal work that could be done here by DOJ would be a criminal investigation and charges. But again, if you look at that memo that the FBI put out last week, they said they went through 3 terabytes of information. That's a massive amount of information. And the memo says, basically, there's no reason to continue down this road. There's no reason to think that anyone should be criminally charged. Now, do people credit that? Do people credit Pam Bondi? That gets into a more complex question.
Right, this morning there is new criticism from the right on the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Politico is now reporting that conservative activist Laura Loomer is calling for the appointment of a special counsel to look into this. With us now, Congressman Mike Lawler, a Republican from New York. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. What do you think a special counsel would accomplish, and how do you feel about it?
Look, as I've said, I'm not exactly one to subscribe to conspiracy theories. So from my vantage point, if somebody committed a crime, if somebody affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein committed a crime, they should be prosecuted. In the absence of that, frankly, this seems like a colossal waste of time and effort and frankly, a lot of nonsense. There are a lot of issues facing this country right now. A dead pedophile ain't one of them. And from my vantage point, you know, the world is a lot better off with Jeffrey Epstein no longer part of it. And as I said, if somebody did something, if there is evidence of a crime committed, then prosecute them. In the absence of that, what are we talking about?
You say there's a lot of nonsense. A lot of nonsense from whom? What do you think? Explain to me what you think the nonsense is here.
Well, frankly, the fact that you're even covering this. I mean, I don't even understand, frankly, why we're spending a lot of time on Jeffrey Epstein. You know, the fact is he was a pedophile who was arrested. He committed suicide, and his fixer, if you will, is being prosecuted. So at the end of the day, if there are people who were part of any crimes, then they should be prosecuted. But in the absence of that, what exactly are we looking to do? The information is there. It is well documented what he did. And beyond that, what exactly are we looking for?
Understood. Just so you know, it's being covered because the deputy director of the FBI is said to have taken off work on Friday to protest the Justice Department's own handling of this, and there have been shouting matches reported inside the White House on this. So whether or not you think it's important, apparently there are people who are quite agitated about it. CNN has learned that President Trump is personally making phone calls to try to get some of his most fervent supporters to back off their attacks on the administration over the Jeffrey Epstein case. And he was literally standing by his Attorney General Pam Bondi at a soccer game amid very public calls for her to be fired. What is notable and most unusual in the entire political history of Donald Trump is that he feels that he has to do this. This is an extremely rare and potentially potent split from his base.
It's not about just a pedophile ring and all that. This is about who governs us, right? And that's why it's not going to go away. You're going to lose 10% of the MAGA movement.
It's insulting our intelligence. Like, obviously, the intelligence community is trying to cover it up. Obviously, the Trump administration is trying to cover up.
The current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes.
So this all has to do with a memo where the Justice Department said it will not release files on the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case, found no evidence that his death was anything but a suicide, and that he had no so-called client list. This runs counter to theories and speculation that many conservative activists have trafficked in for years. Key questions today: what happens to Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who had reportedly been considering resigning over the DOJ handling of this case? Let's get right to the White House. CNN's Elena Treen is there. What are you hearing at this moment, Elena?
Look, John, I mean, we've now seen President Donald Trump repeatedly try to tell his supporters, tell his base to move on from this. We first saw this last week when he was in his cabinet meeting next to Attorney General Pam Bondi, and he said, he tried to suggest really that questions on this, he called them a desecration, and tried to argue that Epstein was old news. Then we saw him on Saturday posting. He said, what's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? He said they're all going after the Attorney General, and that he's still supporting her and essentially saying, knock it off. And then we're learning, as you mentioned, John, that the president has been personally calling some of his fiercest supporters. That includes Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, which is really where we saw all of these big MAGA personalities and conservatives kind of coalesce around this event that they held in Florida this weekend. I caught up with Donny O'Sullivan, our colleague who attended it. He said he did not speak with one person there, one Trump supporter, who said that they did not want to see more information, have more revealed about the Epstein case. And this is really, you put it, I think, very eloquently, this is a major break between Donald Trump and his base that we really haven't seen, particularly ever since Trump's revival. Normally when the president tries to give them a message and tells them to move on, they tend to believe him. But what's going on here is, this is kind of at odds with the president's kind of brand of being a teller of uncomfortable truths.
No, don't
being
move
very
on.
transparent.
This is
even
my
about some of
take.
the most
Don't move on. Republicans do not move on. Stay on the Epstein file. So in 2026, Democrat would have the House. Don't worry about it. Keep on saying Epstein. Okay? So 2028, you're going to have a Democrat president and you're going to be calm by then. Don't move on with the Epstein situation, okay? Forget about the economy, forget about the border, forget about the foreign policies, okay? Because the Epstein files is way more important to Americans who cannot afford their mortgage, who cannot afford food, who cannot afford to pay their auto bills. Epstein. You about to lose the House, and you're about to lose in 2028. Keep talking about Epstein.
controversial topics. But this is not something that is going away. We've now heard, you played that clip of Steve Bannon. I've been talking with him a lot. He said this is something that is not going away. People are very, very angry of this. Both he and Laura Loomer, of course.
And CNN would never do anything that helps Trump. Of course not. Even if this guy cures the greatest, most hardest thing on earth, they would say bad things about him. So for them supporting this rhetoric, you think this helps Trump? It doesn't help Trump. So they know. They know, yo. Y'all about to lose in 2026. Keep on going. And you're helping them make sure you lose. That's great.
Who's also very influential, including on President Donald Trump. She's met personally with the president here at the White House. Both of them now saying they believe that a special prosecutor should be appointed to go over what has been happening and how Attorney General Pam Bondi has actually handled these files. All to say, despite the White House and really the president himself trying to urge his supporters to move on from this, this is something that is not going to go away.
No, they should not move on. They should stay on the Epstein file. Look, I don't even want them to move on because I've said my opinion on this Epstein situation since like last week. But the fact is, the only thing the Republican Party has right now for itself is Trump. And now you're about to take the only thing you have down by yourself. You think J.D. Vance can pull the kind of immense crowd that Trump pulls? You think Marco Rubio can do what Trump is doing? You think Ron DeSantis can do what Trump is? Keep going on the Epstein files.
Easily, and it also comes, as we know, that people here in the White House themselves, this isn't just people on the outside, really feeling like the way that this was handled was mismanaged. And there's a lot of frustration here with how Pam Bondi has really tried to, message all of this.
Yeah, look, we'll see where this goes, but I don't think there's any denying.
Well, congratulations, Republicans. Democrat agrees with you. CNN agrees with you. All right, here we go. More on Don Bongino.
As of this morning, sources tell CNN that leaders at the Department of Justice have not spoken.
CNN is milking it. They are milking it, okay? Because even the Republican content creators are milking the situation. It's like this is content for content creators in the Republican realm. This is what everybody's talking about because I guess it helps the views and interaction or whatnot. But it's like you're doing a disservice, really.
Spoken to Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino since the middle of last week when he implied that he could no longer continue in his role as long as Attorney General Pam Bondi was there. Bongino didn't go into work on Friday after an apparent fallout with Bondi over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. President Trump has not only sided with Bondi, but is now telling his supporters to, quote, not waste any time or energy on the Epstein case, while claiming on social media that the files were written by Democrats with absolutely zero evidence pointing the finger at former President Barack Obama, among others. This has infuriated many in MAGA world, considering this is what top members of the administration had promised.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it.
Let me tell y'all something. Let me just tell y'all something. I do not know how the Republican Party would come out of this, because this right here, this clips right here, this is how the Democrat Party would campaign for Congress in 2026 midterms, and in 2028, whoever they have coming would have a lot of these clips to just campaign on, because all of the top dogs in the Republican Party keep on talking about this. So they're just going to clip you guys and use you against yourself. Forget about the great borders, okay? Just forget about the inflation that is not high anymore. Forget about the prices coming down. Forget about the stock market, okay? Forget about the stock market, okay? Forget about it. Let's focus on Epstein files, okay?
No, ever. Ever.
We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that's going to be followed.
Wow. Okay. So
a lot of documents.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So people can expect actual movement on this. It's not just empty promises.
Oh, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises.
Yeah, all right.
Let's get some perspective from former FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge Mike Feinberg. He says he was pressured to resign from the Bureau earlier this year after being singled out for his long-standing friendship with former FBI official Peter Strzok. Remember, Trump and allies have targeted Strzok, who played a senior role in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Mike, thanks so much for being with us. It looks like your video just went off, but can you hear me? There he is.
Can you hear me, Mike? I can. My apologies. We're experiencing a bit of weather here.
No worries. I'm glad that you're indoors and that our connection is secured. What's your reaction to the Department of Justice after promising to put out flight logs and client lists, et cetera, their plan that they're not going to release any new documents on the matter of Jeffrey Epstein?
This is another reason that when picking senior government officials, you really want to try and find sober-minded, pragmatic men and women who know better than to get ahead of facts before they've actually discovered anything. Patel, Bongino, and to a lesser extent, Bondi really spent, depending on how you time it, the past 4 to 8 years using every position they've held to undermine the credibility of the Justice Department. It's not really a surprise now that their own base doesn't believe them when they make official statements.
Is it your view that these folks ran on promises to uncover this wide-ranging conspiracy that involved figures, including former presidents, and then when they took a closer look, there was no there, and now they're stuck with what their supporters see as a cover-up?
Yeah, look, this is the difficulty with fomenting conspiracy theories. It's very easy to build them up and tell people that they're not getting the whole truth from the government. But once you become a member of that government, it's very difficult to convince them that all of a sudden they can believe you. This problem facing the FBI and DOJ is entirely the making of Patel, Bongino, and Bondi.
Do you sympathize at all with the view that there was a significant amount of information around the Epstein case that would lead to skepticism about whether the public was getting the truth or not? There's a lot of skepticism about his death by suicide, about his connections to all sorts of world figures. So I think naturally a lot of folks would have significant questions. Are you saying that you don't think that this investigation was shaped in any way so as to suppress information or deceive the public?
No, I don't think that. I was not in the New York field office when this investigation was going on, but the Bureau rumor mill is a pretty efficient machine. And, I generally didn't hear about investigations being influenced by political or media considerations. I know some people have that point of view. It's a point of view that has been inculcated by people like Bongino, but I never saw anything like that. And I certainly never heard any rumors or any sort of assertion whatsoever that this investigation was being slow walked or that there was a cover up of some sort or that it wasn't being handled by the book.
There is also a question about the potential opportunity cost of having FBI agents ordered to work around the clock so that the Attorney General could try to fulfill his promise to release more information. A lot of these agents were supposed to be working on national security matters. How much of the FBI's resources do you think have been dedicated to just reviewing this case?
Much too much. For a good portion of the beginning of Patel and Bongino's reign, I was acting as the special agent in charge of my own field office. And while I'm not going to get into specific details that have not yet become public, the fool's errands that we were regularly required to exert time on really took away from serious investigations. I'm talking about public corruption and white-collar investigations, counterterrorism plots, counterintelligence schemes. There is this willingness to throw personnel, money, and resources at whatever is catching the eye of the MAGA base right now, and that's not a way to run an investigative agency on which the public defends.
When you allude to these fool's errands, I wonder, and I noted that you didn't want to get into specifics, but I wonder, did that involve loyalty tests, so to speak?
No, I'm not talking about loyalty tests. I'm talking about relatively baseless conspiracy theories, which individuals like Bongino have now spent years alleging that the government is covering up, and being forced to scour files for things that we know aren't there. And I get there's going to be a certain amount of political pressure in any administration, but this was really, to a degree, I never saw under any other president or any other director or any other deputy director.
Wow. One last question, Mike. Do you think that the American public knows the truth about Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, look, I think Jeffrey Epstein was a monster of a human being. I don't think anybody should lose sleep that he is no longer with us. But, a case was opened on him, admittedly, probably too late. It was investigated. He was arrested. He was imprisoned. He took his own life. And as far as I know, that's it. There is no reason other than the ability to score political points with the MAGA base that this should still even be talked about to this day.
Mike Feinberg, great to get your perspective. Thanks so much for being with us.
We have new reporting on what's going on with the backlash from CNN's White House and Justice Department teams. FBI Director Dan Bongino, who fanned the flames of this conspiracy theory as a far-right podcast host, could be on his way out. He threatened to quit unless Bondi was fired. Sources tell CNN that the president was infuriated by that, and maybe it has caused irreparable damage and a rift between Bongino and the White House. Kash Patel said in a tweet over the weekend, the conspiracy theories just aren't true. Now, we think those conspiracy theories he's referring to are that he would quit or be fired, but we'll see. It's an honor to serve the President of the United States, and I'll continue to do so for as long as he calls on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other really interesting dynamic about this entire story is a lot of the anxiety around this and the frustration with how it was handled is not just on the outside, it's on the inside of the White House as well. I mean, as soon as that memo went out, I talked with a ton of people at the White House who said they were very frustrated with specifically Attorney General Pam Bondi on this. And now you're hearing, of course, we're getting a look at how Dan Bongino is one of the people who is also not happy with this and kind of making it known. And we have new reporting now, and Kristen Holmes is behind some of this as well, is that the vice president has been calling up Bondi, Patel, Bongino to really try and get them all on the same page here because they don't want an internal crisis as well as an external one.
But isn't it, we have seen over and over again that Donald Trump sees the Justice Department and his Attorney General as his personal lawyer, does what he says. For him to say this is, or for anyone to say this is Pam Bondi and not Donald Trump goes against all of that.
Which is why so many people aren't buying it in his orbit.
You were at the Talking Points USA conference. This was much discussed.
Yes. All right. Welcome to the show. You guys are awesome for sure. So, it's not going away. It's not going away, yo.
Turning points.
Excuse me.
But there are, it's mostly talking points.
I love what the kids are doing at Talking Points USA.
Well, you know, I love spending my summer
weekends. And America's talking.
I love spending my summer weekends at a Charlie Kirk conference talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and that's exactly what.
But man, Charlie Kirk was talking about it Friday, and now all of a sudden today, I'm not talking about it anymore.
Yeah. Here is what some of Trump's most ardent supporters told us.
Okay.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think they're going to maybe give us pieces and maybe not the whole thing and think that that's going to suffice. And I don't think people are going to be quiet about it until they really do it. But who knows if we'll ever know the true story.
Ultimately, I mean, how bad do you think it would be for the MAGA movement, for young people's trust in Trump if by the end of his term they don't release everything they know about Epstein?
Well, I think that if they don't release the Epstein files, whatever J.D. Vance says then is irrelevant because it's like everybody's going to take it as like a lie because of what Donald Trump did. But I think J.D. Vance wants these files released as well. And I think that Donald Trump, he promised them, so he needs to do it. No matter who's on them, we need to release the Epstein files.
The whole debate's about Bongino versus...
It's like children talking about, we want Epstein files. Just shut down the country. Shut down the country. End the world. Because your mentors, okay? Your pastors, okay? The leaders of the world, the kings and queens, okay? All on the goddamn list. So, just end the world.
Versus Bondi, but ultimately it's Trump's decision, right? I mean, he has the power.
It's Trump's decision. It's Trump's decision. I think again, and I'm not going to make the decision for the president. It's not my job. It's not my place. But I do think the way that I'm seeing it played out is that Bongino will be here and Pam Bondi will be the fall guy.
You think that's fair?
I don't think anything's fair in politics.
Yeah, nothing is fair in politics. Look, on stage and off stage at that conference all weekend, that's the only thing people were talking about. And that message from Trump is telling people to stop talking about it didn't work. I mean, you saw maybe it worked for Charlie Kirk over the space of the weekend, and now he doesn't want to talk about it anymore, but not landing with the base.
Alyssa, as somebody who knows public relations and certainly worked in this in the previous administration, the first term, what have they done wrong and right here?
Well, I think the big misperception was that Pam Bondi was not acting in lockstep with the White House when she put out this memo last week. This DOJ operates very closely with the White House. It's totally untraditional.
She would not have put out this memo.
I would say there is no chance that she put out this memo without at minimum telling the White House this is what it's going to say. And actually, one of those supporters said it, of Donald Trump said it well. The president could, if he wants everything the government has on Jeffrey Epstein to be released, he could snap his fingers and make DOJ do that tomorrow. So that's where I think Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director, was misreading the room by going after Bondi and saying it's mere Bondi. Clearly, President Trump is standing by her. Clearly, she had authorization to put out what she did. But this might be the most dramatic misreading of Trump's base by the president. This is something that has animated his voters in such a palpable way. If you think of even the conspiracy theories like QAnon and Pizzagate that exist, they're all kind of tied into this idea of these pedophile rings, people in power who are getting away with things. So to kind of flip on this massive animating issue is something that it is not going to go away. Saying stop talking about it is not the answer.
Gretchen, do you think President Trump's post over the weekend just drew more attention to it all?
Yeah, because I think he's trying to just wish this away. And the more that he doesn't say any information about it, we know as journalists, we just want to know more about it, and it keeps the story alive. I think the only way really to combat this is to blunt what Pam Bondi has done and simply admit that she over-exaggerated what was there in the files. But then if he does that, he has to fire Pam Bondi. And he doesn't seem to have an appetite yet for doing that. So he's really in a pickle. And what I would just also add is that he should be talking about his victories right now. I mean, let's face it, whether you like it or not, he passed the big, beautiful bill. He had a successful attack against Iran with no repercussions yet back on the United States. And yet, instead of, being in that, reveling in that political power, he's instead facing a rebellion.
Yeah. I mentioned this to you during the break, but I don't know. If I'm Dan Bongino and I want a podcasting career, because I don't think I'm going to have a longevity at the FBI in any further administration, it would seem to make sense if I'm Dan Bongino to want to lead the FBI now and be the guy who blew the whistle on this or left because of, being upset about Epstein. Otherwise, how's he going to get back into podcasting? That's my...
Isn't that just so absurd that that's a consideration for the deputy director of
the
FBI?
It is, but it's incredible to me
But you're right.
The FBI director, you never saw Chris Wray on any podcast.
But you're completely correct. And Tucker Carlson, again, we're living in a world where Tucker Carlson is the voice of reason. But he made that point on a podcast today.
Great. I'm glad we're in alignment.
But he literally, because these guys have good lives. I mean, they're making a lot of money. There's a great grift in this. Bongino had a great setup. And for him to come back, he's going to have to really, I guess, rebuild the trust of his audience. But very hard thing to do when this is precisely the thing you were going on about for years,
Where do you see this going?
It's also fascinating watching a lot of folks who called everyone else deep state when they weren't in government. Now they're sort of there and they realize there's information you may have access to that perhaps it's law enforcement sensitive. Perhaps it was overhyped and not that interesting and not that much there, even though you made a career and built a following around it. But what I think some folks around the Trump orbit misread is Donald Trump does not talk about Jeffrey Epstein very often. I looked it up. It was something like 5 times in the last decade. And in most cases, it was in response to somebody asking. I think he gets Jeffrey Epstein is an evil, gross dude that nobody likes, and his past association with him is not something he wants to highlight. But there are people from the vice president, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, who have built followings. They have kind of built their profiles on saying, we're going to get to the bottom of Epstein. And they didn't realize this president really didn't run on that. Perhaps people elected him on it because of his supporters saying that and people around him. And that's where this fracture is. He wants it to go away, and they promised people they were going to get them answers. So it's going to come to a head, and they're going to have to decide where they want to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if a Bongino walks at some point.
Gretchen, you heard your old colleague at Fox, Megyn Kelly, over the weekend. She also said that this controversy could cost the president in the midterms. Do you think there's really a chance of that happening?
Oh, who knows? I would bet much more on the fact that the tariffs affecting prices for consumers and potentially a bunch of small businesses going out of business as a result of the tariffs would be much more of an indicator on the midterms because, let's face it, you and I both know that it's the economy, stupid. I mean, that's pretty much what determines most elections. But there is kind of a red herring here because, to Alyssa's point, this seems like this incredible issue that's fracturing MAGA right now. And I find it fascinating as a political analyst because the Epstein files have nothing to do with the MAGA-based daily life. Nothing. I mean, it's not about the economy. It's not about immigration. It's not about anything that actually affects them. And yet it seems to be so important. So I do see it as a potential red herring that it could have this long-lasting effect.
Well, it does. I mean, Dona, you and I have discussed this ad infinitum. It does tie into the whole QAnon, conspiracy theories about Democrats and Pizzagate and all that. It is wrapped up in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting point in that I guess so many of the things that the MAGA base have been conditioned basically to be obsessed about they are distractions, right, from really things that have material impact on their lives. But that's part of the strategy, right? That is part of the strategy from the top to say, let's sell these conspiracy theories about evil cabals and everything else like that. So, yeah, I mean, really, they've fanned the flames of this conspiracy theory for years, and now they see the danger of playing with fire.
Alyssa, what do you think of Hakeem Jeffries on the Democratic side talking about, an investigation? Do you think that's a wise strategy for Democrats to kind of jump in on this?
If Democrats had some great messenger on maybe the minority leader on the oversight committee, this could potentially be. I've just yet to see Democrats really take hold of an opportunity from Donald Trump and win it. I will say this, though. I've been surprised by how much people left, right, and center are fascinated by this story and do feel lied to by the government. So that's where there may be an opportunity. I've heard from Democrats who are like, this just doesn't feel right. The video doesn't feel right. This memo that suddenly there isn't anything. So there may be an opportunity to reach voters and simply saying we want more transparency and trying to take up that mantle. But otherwise, it feels like it's a lot of the same bickering around the edges that we see in Congress.
Why wouldn't they release the whatever files they have? I mean, I guess there may be witnesses who didn't want their names in there, victims perhaps. I don't know.
Go ahead.
A lot of things could be redacted. So in the way that in the national security space, you have things that are classified, oftentimes the DOJ has things that are law enforcement sensitive. It could deal with informants. It could deal with victims that you want to protect, stories that you want to. But there is a way, I'm nearly certain that there's more that the Department of Justice could put out while redacting sensitive information. That's what doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, we know that Trump has obviously hung out at Epstein in the past when there's no allegation of any wrongdoing there whatsoever. And from the people I spoke to this weekend, nobody thinks that Trump did anything wrong, right? But what some people speculated was, well, that maybe some of his friends in New York, there's maybe damaging things there. And they talked about how Trump is such a loyal guy and doesn't want to upset people's families in that sort of way. I will just mention, I can't underscore the disconnect here enough, because that post from the weekend, Trump's post of the gals and boys, that was on Truth Social, basically a pro-Trump echo chamber. It has, I think, about 47,000 comments under it right now. I've never seen the likes of it on Truth Social before. They're basically all negative.
Really?
They're all pushing
about the president.
Yes, pushing back against the president. I went through many of them. I couldn't find one positive thing. So that's very unusual.
Yeah.
Right, so this morning, the president's border czar, Tom Homan, he says the administration will fight a new judge's ruling stopping immigration arrests without probable cause in Southern California. That judge ordering Homeland Security to stop detaining people based solely on race, spoken language, or occupation. More on that. CNN's Harry Enten is continuing to track with all of this news the shifting view of the American people as this immigration crackdown continues. How is the president doing on immigration at this point?
In a word, Kate, oof. What are we talking about here? Take a look at this. Trump's net approval rating on immigration. Got 5 numbers for you across the screen here. A lot of focus on Gallup at minus 27. That's horrible. Quinnipiac University minus 16. That's awful. Marist is bad at minus 9. Ipsos is minus 8. Fox at minus 7. Bad. So going from your left side, bad, to just downright terrible on the right side of your screen. The American people have turned against President Donald Trump on what was his best issue, one in which he had a positive net approval rating for most of his term, and arguably the issue that got him, of course, the GOP nomination all the way back in 2016, and one of the issues, of course, he used last year to quite a successful degree.
Absolutely. Is there signs that this is affecting his overall approval?
Okay, so you see this here, and then the question is, does this actually matter to folks? Why don't we zone in Hispanic voters, right? Because obviously a lot of the immigrants who have been affected by this have been Hispanic voters in terms of the immigration crackdown. Take a look here. Trump's net approval rating amongst Hispanics. Remember, Trump put in a historic performance last fall among Hispanic voters, did better than any Republican nominee dating all the way back since we have data in 1972. His net approval rating among Hispanics in February was pretty gosh darn good for a Republican at -2 points. Look at how far it's fallen now in June, according to CBS News YouGov, at -26 points. And I should note, CBS News YouGov is not alone on this. This is what we see in the averages as well. Donald Trump was doing historically well for a Republican amongst Hispanics in terms of his net approval rating, and now he's basically back where he was during his first term, which is quite a low approval rating, one in which has brought his overall approval rating down amongst the entire electorate.
And one thing that has been very clear is that as this crackdown has continued, it has put immigration enforcement, ICE, in a whole new spotlight across the country. What are the numbers on ICE now?
Yeah, what are the numbers on ICE? It's not just affecting Donald Trump, it's affecting ICE as well. ICE's net approval rating. In Trump's first term, the average was 0 points, right? So right there on the bottom, as many approve as disapprove. Look at where we are now in June of 2025. -17 points all the way down. So the bottom line is this immigration crackdown not being viewed popularly by the American public, bringing Donald Trump down and bringing immigration and custom enforcement down with him.
Thanks for continuing to track this, Harry. It's really interesting, the trend lines that you've been seeing all along.
Thanks, Kate.
We're going to start with the issue which arguably helped sweep Donald Trump back into power, immigration. He promised to carry out the largest mass deportation in history. But is the administration's plan backfiring? We're going to take a look at scenes like this playing out in Southern California, where hundreds of farm workers were arrested in a raid by ICE agents. One man died from his injuries Saturday after falling from a greenhouse during a raid last week.
It's causing ICE to get more aggressive, more cruel, more extreme, and these are the results. It's people dying because of fear and terror caused by this administration.
On Friday, a federal judge actually issued an order for Southern California barring immigration arrests based solely on race, spoken language, or a person's job.
This federal judge's ruling is ridiculous. We never ran our operations that way. We always built our operations, our investigations on casework, on knowing individuals that we needed to target because they were criminals, because they had conducted violent crimes against individuals in their communities or had overstayed their orders, had violated federal laws, and that is always how this is done.
So the ruling in California comes as Alligator Alcatraz begins filling up in Florida with hundreds of migrant detainees. According to a list obtained by the Miami Herald, more than 250 people, out of that 250 people of the 700 held at the site, the minority have no criminal history or pending charges.
We were very suspect of that because they have a bracelet system of red, yellow, and green, I believe. And, you know, we could hardly get up close to any of them, but it was clear that there were not many with red bracelets. But then the Herald story comes out this morning and shows that hundreds of these 900 detainees have no criminal conviction. And that was our suspicion to begin with.
So we want to talk about how this is going over with voters. The latest Gallup poll shows 62% disapprove of how Trump is handling the issue. These are the worst numbers he's gotten on immigration during his second term. Joining me to discuss, Sarah Fisher, CNN media analyst, Lillian Young's CNN political analyst and White House correspondent for the New York Times, and Zachary Wolf, CNN senior politics reporter and the author of the What Matters newsletter. Zach, I really want to start with you because you've been talking about the fact of the spending, and I think you've been reporting about this as well. ICE is about to become one of our largest federal law enforcement agencies?
The largest federal law enforcement agency, and by a good bit. I mean, the new bill
the law, the great big beautiful law. I don't know what we're calling it at this point, but that is going to supercharge ICE. So if you don't like what you're seeing, the masked agents, all of that, there's going to be a lot more of those people as soon as they can start to hire them. They're going to have this infusion of cash. There's a lot more money to build detention centers. So this is like the template, and it's going to get a lot bigger when they can make
Here's
it happen.
how people are feeling about it so far. I think Gallup has shown this sharp shift where you have 62% now disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. This is a huge reversal from just a few months ago. But this is what he promised, and I think people understood that. What do you hear in those numbers? Disapproval of how it's being carried out, disapproval of how it's gone. Help me understand.
Yeah. Well, he definitely promised mass deportations and promised a historic campaign. But even when you look at some of the polls that were taken during the presidential campaign, there was a bit of nuance there. People definitely wanted deportations and definitely wanted to crack down on the border. But those polls would often sometimes show that some of those same people did feel that there should also be a legal pathway to citizenship. Since the beginning of this term, you've seen Trump's aides came into office really emphasizing going after undocumented immigrants with criminal records. Well, we've seen a broadening since then, right? Did people ask for the deportations of immigrants to a terrorism prison in El Salvador, a crackdown on college campuses, the detaining of a Tufts student for writing an op-ed, really a use of deportations to crack down on dissent as well.
And it's been, I think, underscored by people like Joe Rogan. There's sort of other folks who supported Trump during the election, even on this issue, and they're raising kind of the loudest questions most consistently.
Yes, and Rogan was one of the folks that came out and questioned the deportation of a man to El Salvador. That constituency, we call it the manosphere, right? They're not explicitly conservative, but they have huge audiences online. They're very, very powerful to reaching young voters, a lot of who voted for Donald Trump. And so if they're going to come out and start to question some of these policies, that's why I think you see these mass shift in the polls, because these are people who make big impact now in politics. Also would be remiss not to note, I think one of the discrepancies in the polls of how people feel right now is because this is a very visual raid.
Right.
Okay, so you have in LA, of course, all the pushback, you have the smoke. People see visually how frustrating and how big of an impact this is having on communities. That is very different from sort of these more silent efforts where you go in quietly, you litigate with someone, maybe you pull them out in handcuffs quietly in the back.
Yeah,
that is not
have
what
you
this
noticed
is.
online people on Reddit, et cetera, posting little videos of ICE detentions that are happening in their neighborhood or on the street surreptitiously? One of the things that's been interesting is watching the partisan view of immigration shift. Now, the question they were asking here was just, do you think immigration is a good thing? And you see this shift from 2024, where you had even independents, just 66% said that. Now that number is 80%. And I think it shows that, go ahead.
No, you know what was so funny to me? Remember when Elon Musk came in and he was advocating on the visa issue for immigrants? He was saying, look at me, I'm a huge entrepreneur. I brought electric vehicles to this country.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. I just saw the Bama girl, Terry. Terry says, if I were a Democrat, I'd be extremely pissed off with my party for not releasing the list. Stand up, dams. Don't be ships. Let your party know they kept those files from you. Terry. They're not standing up. They're getting ready to win the midterms. That's what they're getting ready to do right now. Okay. They are getting ready to win the midterms because Republicans will allow them win the midterms. Okay. You think they care about Epstein's list? They don't care about no Jepstein list. They don't. Okay. They don't. But they're getting ready to win the midterms, though. I'll tell you that much.
I'm sending most of your supplies up to the space station. Look at what an immigrant can do. That broke MAGA, right? You had Steve Bannon and other Trump allies saying, this is not going to work out. Where did Trump side? He sided with Elon Musk. And I think he did it because he knows that this idea of Americanism is secretly, deep down, it is rooted in immigration, and there's a sentiment around that, both parties.
And fundamentally, I think all of this is reminding people of.
They are literally allowing the Republican Party to do the campaign for them, like free of charge.
Release the Epstein files. That is the demand coming from the top House Democrat. Tonight, Hakeem Jeffries joining MAGA Voices, saying that the American public deserves to know the truth. And Jeffries offered up two explanations as to why he believes the administration may be involved in some sort of a cover-up.
Option one, they lied for years. Option two, they're engaging in a cover-up. At this point, it seems reasonable that can only be one of the two things. And so it's Congress's responsibility in a bipartisan way to ask the questions and try to get answers on behalf of the American people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The midterm. Say bye. Bye-bye to the midterms. Okay, because, yeah, it's over.
Again, that is the top Democrat in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is obviously an incredibly rare thing. This might be, in fact, the only time that he's been on the same page as some of the biggest names in the MAGA universe.
Man, he ain't on no goddamn thing.
Coming out and saying there is no Epstein list, and so forget about it after promising to release all the Epstein information. It's just flip-flopping in 180s.
The Unholy Alliance, Hakeem Jeffries and Alex Jones. That's Alex Jones today, who then posted that, quote, evil forces are afoot. And then there's Laura Loomer, who's telling Politico that she is now calling for a special counsel. The quote is, so that people can feel like this issue is being investigated and perhaps take it out of Bondi's hands, because I don't think she has been transparent or done a good job handling the issue. Well, look, the war over Epstein is one of the biggest rifts between Trump and his most loyal and powerful reporters that we've seen.
for real?
And Trump right now has taken a clear side, which is not releasing information. This image says it all. Trump invited the Attorney General Pam Bondi to the FIFA World Cup finale over the weekend. As you can see, he appears to be giving a thumbs up to her. He brought her there. That's really what the picture that says 1,000 words. Bondi, of course, is the same person who said that the Epstein client list was on her desk nearly 5 months ago, and now says there was actually no.
Shout out to Jet. Thank you for the super chat. Jet says Biden had 4 years to release. Y'all didn't care then. They don't care about Epstein files, bro. They don't. All of this right here is for 2026 midterms. And it's looking like the Democrat Party is going to win the midterms because the Republican Party is outrightly helping them campaign free of charge. I get it. You want transparency. 1000%. Everybody wants transparency. But this is not the way. This ain't the way. You're literally giving the power to the people that you say you don't want in power. They're coming for your seats. They're coming for your seat, and they're going to get your seat. Tell you that much. They're coming for your seat. And y'all are doing the free montage for them for the 2026 campaign. What? I mean, like, how do you even roll back from this? How? Oh, no, vote for... You told us the Republican Party is not being transparent, and now you want us to vote for a Republican congressman? No, we ain't voting. There goes the Democrat, winning all the seats.
List, and there's nothing to see. Meantime, Trump's deputy FBI director has taken a stand over the handling of the files. Trump acknowledging the civil war that's erupted inside his inner MAGA base, but making it clear that base, while at the same time he's trying to keep the pressure off of his attorney general. He posted, "What's on with my boys and in some cases gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job." But of course, when it comes to Trump's boys and gals who are on the opposite side of Bondi on this, they say they want to know the truth when it comes to Epstein.
I mean, see how CNN is milking it. CNN is milking it, yo. They're milking it.
To just release any information. And after all, it all comes down to this, just to remind everybody. Jeffrey Epstein, who you see on the screen, was arrested on federal charges of sex trafficking minors. Let's just say it the other way. Underage girls. That same year, officials say he died by suicide in his solitary confinement prison cell while awaiting trial. And since then, more and more details of Epstein's alleged activities have come out, and they are disturbing, including allegedly luring underage girls to his homes where he sexually abused them.
Here we go.
Now, while he died before he went to trial, his partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, is currently serving a 20-year sentence after being found guilty of sex trafficking. And Epstein had hundreds of millions of dollars of money he was ostensibly managing for really rich and powerful people. There's a lot we do not know about him. We do know, though, that he was friends with a lot of rich and famous people, including President Trump and former President Clinton, and a whole bunch of other billionaires. Now, none of them have been accused of wrongdoing, but given that Epstein was able to carry out these alleged crimes for so many years, Trump should be the one pounding the table, put out the information, make sure something like this never happens again in the United States. But right now, he's not.
Are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Well, Trump says he wants to move on now to end the war that's dividing his base and now getting Democrats on board, too. But there are still many with very serious and important questions. And Kristen Holmes is out front live at the White House to begin our coverage. And Kristen, you've got some new reporting tonight on what Trump is doing. I mean, there's a split between the Department of Justice, his Attorney General, and his Deputy FBI Director. I mean, this is meaningful even in the Trump inner circle. What are you learning?
Yeah, and just to be clear here, we talked a lot about the Deputy FBI Director, Dan Bongino, but it's also been a rift between the FBI Director, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi as well. Both of them, Patel and Bongino, have been unhappy, complaining privately about the way that Bondi handled the Epstein files, the Epstein case in general, and particularly the rollout. And that was something we heard across the board. Even some of Donald Trump's closest advisors were upset with Bondi. But when you talk to the president himself, sources say that he is supporting Bondi 100%. And part of the issue here, though, is this idea that President Trump doesn't want it to look as though his administration is falling apart over this issue. And that's why you saw over the weekend Vice President J.D. Vance spending an enormous amount of time talking to Dan Bongino, to Kash Patel, to Pam Bondi, to playing some kind of role as peacemaker to try and diffuse the situation. And we heard that Dan Bongino, who did not go to work on Friday because he was really protesting Bondi's handling of this, they had a blow up on Wednesday in the White House, that he did show up for work on Monday. Now, his future is uncertain. There is a general belief that he is not long for this world amid the administration. He himself has said that he doesn't actually like this job, but President Trump wants it to be on different terms, not him leaving because he's angry about the Bondi rollout. And this now we see what the next steps are. Is the administration going to respond to any of this calling from the MAGA base to release more information? Right now, it seems unlikely.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much at the White House tonight. Out front now, Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, I appreciate your time. I know that you have been clear where you stand on this. You have said Trump should release all of the Epstein files and put an end to this, to use your words exactly. Then the DOJ comes out with this memo saying there's no client list. Epstein wasn't murdered. We're all good here. Let's move along. Why don't you believe them?
Well, for one thing, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, said that the client list was on her desk. Then you had Donald Trump in a tweet or in a Truth Social missive saying that all of these files were actually created by the Democrats, thereby decisively implying that the files actually exist. And of course, Trump and Bondi and J.D. Vance and the FBI Director, Kash Patel, all of them were demanding that the government release everything that they had on it. And suddenly the president performs a complete about-face on the matter and says that there's nothing to see here and let's move on, and wants to sweep it under the rug. And so, look, I have no idea what's in those files. I do know that this case has been mishandled from the very beginning. Donald Trump's former labor secretary, Mr. Acosta, was the assistant U.S. attorney when they gave Mr. Epstein a very sweetheart deal where he pled guilty to one charge of solicitation when they had all of these underage female witnesses testifying about his basically trafficking in girls. So, it's been very weird from the beginning, but I don't know what's in their files. So either we're going to confirm everything that Donald Trump and his team have been saying all along, which is that there is this extensive child sex trafficking ring among power elites, or it will explode the whole thing as a conspiracy theory and mere propaganda. But at this point, the president owes it to the country to put it to rest one way or the other.
Well, of course, as you pointed out, not just what Epstein had been convicted for, but what he was on trial for. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell is serving 20 years just for aiding and abetting one part of that. The crimes here are horrific, and if anyone else was aware or involved, the American public should know. In fact, the MAGA faithful, as you point out, have been pounding on the table on this, calling for it repeatedly. Here are a few of the biggest names.
How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light?
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
What the hell are they hiding with Jeffrey Epstein?
I mean, it's the president's son, it's the head of the FBI, it's the deputy head of the FBI now. I mean, those are the three people making those statements. I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand. It would make sense, wouldn't it, that Trump would want to release this, if not just to assuage his base. I mean, why not put something out there if it exists?
Well, he was with them in demanding that these materials be released to the public. And now all of the questions that his son was asking and that Kash Patel was asking and Dan Bongino were asking are now directed at Donald Trump himself and at Attorney General Bondi. They want to know why, now that you have the reins of the government, you're not just going public with it. And so, look, at this point, I think the president has helped to spin large parts of the country into an absolute paranoid tizzy about all of this. Again, we don't know what's there and what's not there.
See what the Democrats are doing. So they're essentially saying, look, we don't even know if these files exist, because if it actually does, why wouldn't Donald Trump release the files? Or maybe he's just incompetent and he hires incompetent people. So they are saying they don't know. Or maybe the MAGA world is just more of conspiracy theory. That's what they're doing. They're letting the MAGA world, the Republican Party, take the fall. That's what they're doing. And it's going to help them win elections. It is. This is probably the smartest thing I've seen Democrat do in a long time. This is really smart. Tell you that much.
But we need to resolve it. It's kind of getting to be an ungovernable situation, and the president should go ahead and release whatever they do know about whether there are outstanding sex abusers out there who have not been picked up for the...
There you have it. There you have it. It's coming home to roost, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here goes Obama.
President Barack Obama has a blunt message for his fellow Democrats. Quote, just toughen up. Stepping out for his first fundraising appearance since the Democrats' 2024 election loss, the former president had some tough love as his party continues to struggle to counter President Trump's agenda. He told donors this over the weekend. Quote, I think it's going to require a little bit less navel-gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions, Obama said, according to excerpts of his remarks exclusively obtained by CNN. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up. CNN's chief political analyst, former senior advisor to President Obama, David Axelrod, joins us now. Ax, always great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's like when people talk about this, Epstein file, I'm thinking to myself, you guys forget. And that's how people forget easily. That's why I really never take, human beings, you could do good things for 10 years straight, and you mess up one time, here's a fuck up. You guys forget that Donald Trump was almost taken away from this world because he was campaigning for election. So easy to forget. You all forget this guy's home was raided. Just like that. Everybody forgets. I'm telling you, this world, don't kill yourself for this world, man. Do not kill yourself for this world. Don't do it. This man's home was raided. Yeah. All of a sudden, nobody remembers. This guy was almost ended twice. Nobody remembers. Nobody remembers, ladies and gentlemen. But this right here, oh, we're going to take him down. We're going to help them take him down.
Good to see you.
What do you make of the former president doing this in this way and doing it now?
Well, it's telling that he did it at a fundraiser for the Democratic National Committee that was set up to support candidates, particularly the two gubernatorial candidates in New Jersey and Virginia, Mikey Sherrill and Spamberger in Virginia. And so, I mean, if you read through all of it, I think part of what he's saying is the way you resist is by electing people who are going to pursue a different policy. And, you know, so toughen up and, you know, stop navel gazing and so on means focus on the task at hand. And he talked very specifically about that. The thing I found most interesting about it, Casey, was there were a couple of lines in there. He said, stop looking for the quick fix, stop looking for the messiah. You have great candidates running races right now, support these candidates. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about why isn't he out more. I think his view, and I've had these discussions with him in the past, is that there are always new leaders. And you need to lift up these new leaders, and these new leaders have to lead. And it is not appropriate or wise to look back and say, well, you come back and do it again, or you be the, and that, you know, in a sense, that was, to me, an explanation for why he's picked his shots and why he has he's been a little circumspect.
And I don't want you guys to get me wrong. I've said my opinion about this Epstein file. I call him Epstein, not Epstein. Look, this Epstein file, I already told y'all. Do I care about Epstein files? Does the Epstein files even exist? I mean, who knows? Of course, according to Pam Bundy, who, in my opinion, nobody asked, talking about she has heaps of files on her desk. Okay, who asked you? Okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. But you said it. Okay, so show the world what you have on your desk. Show the world what you had on your desk because you said it. Now, does the Epstein file affect the economy? Absolutely not. Does the Epstein files affect the borders? No. Does the Epstein file affect foreign policies? No. So tell me, just tell me, does the Epstein files affect you from paying your mortgage and bills and affordability in the United States and inflation? No. So what do you want the Epstein files for precisely? I like to know. Because you want transparency and you want justice. Of course, everybody wants justice and transparency because that's what the Trump administration prides itself on, which is total transparency. That's why he goes around on Air Force One on the South Lawn giving press conferences and answering questions. Of course. But what does the Epstein files do for you personally and for America as a whole?
And not out there constantly, because he believes that there are voices within the Democratic Party who can step up and lead at this point and into the future.
Well, David, it's interesting you picked up on that, because that also really stuck out to me, especially the use of the word Messiah. I mean,
Okay, so everybody's saying to hold the accusers accountable. All right? Okay. So if we're going down the accountability hole, who's going to hold Joe Biden accountable for pardoning his son? Who is going to hold Hillary Clinton accountable for the 16,000 emails? Who is going to hold a long list accountable? There's so many people that, if you're talking about accountability, you want to hold people accountable. Where do we start? Where do you actually want to start from? Because you want to hold them accountable.
because Obama himself, right, was often treated like that, right, in the Democratic Party. And we've increasingly seen that our politics are driven by singular figures more than they're driven by a party, or, people don't trust the parties as much, right? Obama had a hold over the Democratic Party in a way. He was able to bring voters in.
Look, you guys are getting me wrong. Do I want the Epstein files? Absolutely, because Pam Bundy went on national cable news network and said she had evidence on her desk. She said it. So show the American people what you have. Do I want the accusers to get what they deserve? Absolutely. Now, is there files? Who knows? Okay. Who knows? Who knows? But Pam Bundy, the AG, said she had files on her desk and she's currently looking through them. But when she was asked the same question with Trump on the same desk with her, she said the evidence she had was children doing explicit stuff, and she could never release those things to the world. So now people are saying, okay, we don't want to see kids doing explicit stuff. We want to see the people doing these things with the kids. Okay, we want those people, those accusers, those people get what they deserve. So that's the justice the American people want. So, look, this is not going away, and I don't know how this administration is going to play this, but one thing is for sure, there's no Trump coming to save the Republican Party next presidential election. There's no figure like Trump or someone even close to Trump and the way he is eccentric. Nobody. Who, J.D. Vance? I don't think so. Marco Rubio? Maybe not. Ron DeSantis? So the only person that brought the country to a standstill and rallied people to vote in bulk for him, they're about to throw him under the bus. Okay. Awesome. Great plan.
Into the Democratic Party in a way that others have simply not been able to. Is there a world where, well, it's kind of easy for him to say that?
Well, there is. I think that's a fair commentary, but I think it's also instructive to look back at that race in 2008, because one of the great appeals of Barack Obama was that he was willing to be flinty-eyed about criticizing the politics of Washington writ large, and he didn't excuse Democrats from that. And I think we're in a similar period now when what people are looking for are leaders who are willing to square up with the not just the failures of Donald Trump, which are very well known and current, but also the things that led people to Donald Trump. The fact that so many working people voted for him including black and Hispanic voters. And they're looking for someone to say, how do we build something better? How do we build something that's actually more responsive to the needs of working people? How do we build something that is resistant to the influence of the money and special interests and, yes, identity politics, and build something around the things that we all share, the concerns for our families and how we make a living and how our kids are going to do better than we do. And, you know, I think that's what people are looking for. But I mean, I get your criticism, and I think what he's saying is don't do that. I think what he's saying is look to the leaders you have and support them and lift them up, and leadership will come.
David Urban, what say you?
Who might have questioned the wise axe, right? I would say this. What I think is very instructive is who he is holding up and who he's not mentioning, right? So he's holding up Spanberger. He's holding up Sherrill, two pretty moderate Democrats, blue dogs almost, Democrats. But yet we didn't hear any mention of Mr. Mamdani, who's really kind of captured the Democratic Party like Obama did before 2008, right? So I think that is very instructive.
Well, New York may or may not be the same as, like, you know, Obama.
No, but still,
Iowa
but
in
if you
2008,
look at who is fired up the base the most, right? I think at this point, I may be wrong, but I think Mamdani, right?
Those are the most critical elections right now, the statewide. And Abby and Mikey are dynamic leaders.
I'll also say, from having read that speech that he gave, he was pretty scoldy. He is very scoldy these days. And he talked a lot about how people are not stepping up and doing their part and how people have been folding and not really standing up tall. And I just don't think that that goes down very well anymore. We saw that in the run-up to the election, where he was sort of telling black men that they needed, in solidarity, to vote for a black woman. And I think that that kind of scoldy Obama really doesn't play to the Democratic base anymore.
Axe, can I get you to weigh in on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I half agree that I applaud those people, those law firms who have the courage to stand up, universities that are standing up to protect academic freedom. I also am aware that there are responsibilities to the institutions that people are leading that cause those to be difficult questions. So it's not as easy as one might say. That said, there may have been people in that room last night who were there to support the Democratic Party but had questions about whether they wanted to stick their own neck out if they were part of a big law firm and so on. And for them, maybe the message was appropriate.
Axe, can I get you to also to weigh in on what David Urban was just saying about who and where the excitement is coming in? I mean, it's a good point. Abigail Spanberger is the kind of candidate that certainly, if you think about the Bill Clinton model in the 1990s, someone from the South, she's got national security experience, appealing to a broader coalition, very different profile than the Democratic nominee for the mayoralty in New York.
Yeah, we're also a big, diverse country. I don't think David Urban, my buddy, I don't think he supports everything that every Republican office holder around this country has said. He's way too sane for that. And I would say this: Mamdani he especially excited young people in New York, and it is instructive to see how he has done that. He has done that by single-mindedly focusing on the issue of affordability, which is huge in New York and across this country. So you may not agree with his prescriptions on some things, and you may not agree with some of his positions on other issues, but I think that is a through line for Democrats across the country, whether it is Mikey Sherrill in Jersey or Spanberger in Virginia or candidates across the country. We have an affordability crisis in this country. It's one of the reasons why Donald Trump was elected. Despite the fact that he says that he has done a tremendous job in dealing with that, I think people know the cash register doesn't lie, the rent check doesn't lie. This is a persistent problem, and I think it's one that Democrats can unify around rather than splintering into other issues that are much more divisive.
All right, David Axelrod, always grateful to have you on the show, sir. See you soon, I hope.
Yes, so while we're here talking about the Epstein files, about over 100 people have lost their lives in Texas, including children. So, please pray for those families while you are all excited about the Epstein files. And according to Ellie here in the chat, he says there's been flooding in New York. So, people are going through a real life situation. So while we're here talking about, or I don't know, prolonging the Epstein issues, like real life is going on. Okay. All right, here we go.
Pretty much a tip of the iceberg in terms of the administration's success. I don't think enough people get that 30,000-foot view and look at the big picture, because I really can't think of a presidency in the modern era that has accomplished that much so quickly. Is the administration going to celebrate it in some way?
Well, with President Trump, we work hard every day, and we are going to continue to work hard to deliver on all of the campaign promises that he made to the American public. But it surely has been an extraordinary 6-month start to the 4 years that President Trump has been blessed with back in the Oval Office. And let's go back to 1 year ago yesterday, where God saved the life of President Trump so he could save this country and return to this city where so much change is needed. And look at what he has done with the border. You just laid it out, Sean, the most secure border in our nation's history. A president who has the backs of our law enforcement officers every day. Those law enforcement officers who are watching your show right now, who put their uniform on to protect our fellow Americans, to make our communities safer. This president supports you and he loves you. Look at our economy. It is booming again, thanks to the pro-growth, less regulatory policies of this administration. And President Trump just signed the most significant piece of tax legislation in American history, the largest tax cut for working and middle-class families. That means more money directly into the pockets of every single American watching your show tonight. You look at what he's done to root out DEI and waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government, to keep men out of women's sports. Victory upon victory. We had another one with the Supreme Court today, handing another big victory to not just the Trump administration, but more importantly, parents and students and families across the country. The Supreme Court saying that, yes, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon can move forward with the president's promise to dismantle the Department of Education, return education back to parents, back to states, so we can have the best, brightest, most highly educated students in the world. Win after win every day. We will continue to work hard. And I just want to say to your audience, there is not a more hardworking president than Donald J. Trump. I witness it with my own 2 eyes every day. That man is working around the clock. He hardly ever sleeps. He's constantly thinking about not just the problems in our country here, but around this world and how to solve them. And look at what he's done on the world stage with bringing peace to the Middle East, with jarring Russia and Ukraine to actually talk directly for the first time in this war in years. We see what's happening with the hostages coming out of Gaza, and he's going to keep pushing until every last hostage is out. This is a president who is a peacemaker in chief, and it cannot be overstated how successful the first 6 months of this administration have been, thanks to the leadership of President Trump.
Caroline, let me read a headline from the Washington Examiner. Trump's tariffs deregulation give June its first budget surplus in 20 years. Wow. That's not gotten a lot of attention.
No, it hasn't.
No,
and
it
all
won't.
of the naysayers,
Everybody's focused
all
on
of the
Epstein.
so-called economic experts who doubted this president and his economic formula are now eating their words. In fact, there was a story on the cover of the Wall Street Journal today saying that those fears of recession that everyone was ranting and raving about have now cooled because the economy and everyone from Wall Street to Main Street understands this is a president who is a businessman and he knows what he's doing. Pro-growth, higher wages, less inflation, less taxes, and more money back in people's pockets. And look at the investments that have poured into our country. We have companies all over the world who are coming to build factories and create jobs with American hands and American labor right here in the United States of America. This is the best country on the planet to do business in. And that's something President Trump promised the American worker. I was with him on the campaign. I know you covered it, Sean. When he traversed this country and promised the American worker he was going to stand up for them. And his economic agenda has surely done that. And all of the so-called experts, they have been proven wrong. The president knows what he's doing. He wants to bring growth back to this country. He wants to end the Biden inflation crisis, and he already has in just six months. There's more work to do. He will continue to do it. But he has a proven economic formula that works. Just look at the success of his first term as president.
Let me ask you about the 700% increase of attacks on ICE agents. Add to that the doxing of ICE agents and their families. Now, the president did pull the plug on free tuition for illegals, and the president did authorize ICE agents to protect themselves when rocks are being thrown at them by protesters and protect themselves by whatever means is necessary. And then you have the L.A. Mayor Karen Bass announcing a new cash giveaway plan for Biden illegals. How is it possible that you're going to give away free money to illegals, and in New York State they're talking about hiring attorneys for illegals, and then you have sanctuary state and city policies? How is any of this not against the law? How is it not aiding and abetting lawbreaking?
The Democrats have completely lost their minds, and they have forgotten the number one reason they lost the election in an overwhelming fashion on November 5th. And it's because they were putting American citizens behind illegal aliens who were invading our country for 4 years. You think about the images outside of the Roosevelt Hotel in New York, which was once a historic landmark hotel where presidents used to go to hang out and host meetings. It has now been run into the ground. It is now a desolate place where millions of illegal aliens invaded cities like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They stole the benefits that should be going to hardworking, tax-paying Americans, and they committed crimes all across this country, and many American lives have been lost. So now the president has empowered federal law enforcement to actually do the jobs they signed up to do, to remove these public safety threats from our communities. And it is shameful that you have elected leaders who are elected to protect their American citizen constituents who are aiding and abetting this violence against federal law enforcement. You look at Los Angeles and the raid that ICE just conducted on a marijuana facility. 300 illegal criminals were pulled out of that facility, some of them unaccompanied minors. By the way, the Biden administration lost thousands of children that this administration is focused on finding with law enforcement operations like these. And there was also child predators and convicted murderers who were picked up in that operation as well. God bless the men and women of ICE. They are heroes, and they are great men and women who put on that uniform every day and deserve to go home safely to their families at night. And the Democrats who are allowing this violence to take place against them should be ashamed of themselves. And I know that the American people will firmly reject that position in the next election, just like they did in the previous election on November 5th, when they reelected President Trump and the Trump administration to seal our border and deport illegal criminals from our homeland.
We saw the reaction.
Yes. Caroline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary, doing a good job. I might add to that. All right, here we go. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the Iranian has still put in like 40 M.
Tremendous amount of gratitude.
40 M on President Trump. What in the world is going on here?
A little more than a year ago, an assassin's bullet came within a millimeter of taking President Trump's life. Instead, that horrific day in Butler, Pennsylvania was the start of what was a historic year for Donald Trump and our country and, frankly, the world. Just take a moment, reflect on all that has happened. Trump eviscerated the left's lawfare, and that's only beginning, and we have an investigative report tonight. He got elected a president again, this time by a wide electoral margin, winning all swing states and the popular vote. And as president, his policies and actions have been a monumental success. Our border is now secure. Criminal illegals are being deported in record numbers. Inflation is finally under control. Our economy is beginning to boom. You see it at the pump. Gas prices are at 5-year lows. And the U.S. federal government, they just posted their first monthly surplus in over 20 years. And meanwhile, Congress passed the largest tax cuts in American history, and families and working men and women are the biggest beneficiaries. No tax on tips and overtime. It is now the law of the land.
Shout out to Ellie. God bless you, Ellie. I got to give you a shout out, man. Ellie has been here for a long, long time and has been supporting the channel. God bless you, Ellie. Have a wonderful night. Ellie is in Chirac. I'll tell you that much. Ellie is in Chirac. So we got to make sure we put Ellie in our prayers that God blesses him and protect him from the Chiracians. Okay. Shout out to Ellie, man. Love you, bro. Love you so much, bro. Have a wonderful night rest. God bless you, Ellie. Here we go.
We are also on a path towards energy dominance, and a nuclear-armed Iran that has been dismantled. What a difference 1 year and 1 millimeter can make. And we are not officially at the 6-month mark of Donald Trump being president for now the second time. Unfortunately, we are still dealing with many of the threats that were left behind from the last administration. ICE is working around the clock to identify, locate, deport violent criminals. That includes murderers, rapists, other violent criminals, and known terrorists in our country, Iranian assassination squads in our country, cartel members, gang members, drug dealers, all in our country.
And that's the thing about haters, okay? I'm pretty sure it's not Ellie, it's Eli or whatever. Look, Ellie allows me to pronounce his name as Ellie. We've spoken about this like 6-7 months ago, but you want to go on your computer, on your phone. Like you type it, so you're about to make a point. You're not making any points, yo. He loves me. I love him. Okay. What else? That's the thing. Y'all think you're making a point. I'm going to get him now. You ain't getting nobody.
On top of all of this, breaking tonight, extremists in Iran have reportedly raised a whopping $40 million as a reward for assassinating President Trump. This all because Joe and Kamala and Mayorkas, they all lied to us for 4 years. They said the border was closed, but they allowed millions and millions of unvetted illegal immigrants from over 200 countries, including countries with terror ties, into our country. The task ahead is monumental. The good news is a lot of progress is being made, but it's going to be hard. Thousands of criminal illegal aliens are now taken into ICE custody every week. There was a raid at a California marijuana farm that resulted in the arrest of more than 300 illegal immigrants. Among those detained were 10 exploited minors working at the marijuana farm. What do we call that? Oh, that's right, child abuse, alongside a notorious sex predator from Mexico. And now the left, they are up in arms, not because of that, not because Joe Biden allowed violent predators to cross into our country unvetted, and then lost track of literally to hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors, but because ICE is now detaining criminals and rescuing these children, by the way. And as a big thank you, Democrats are attacking the people that are protecting the kids. And not just with words. Look at what's going on. According to the DHS, assaults on federal officials are up a whopping 700%. A lot of these agents are being set up. These agents get attacked now almost every single day. It is underreported. Let's look at this timeline. July 2nd, a man repeatedly ramming an ICE vehicle with his car in California. July 4th, a group of far-left extremists attacking an ICE detention facility in Texas. In that case, shooting a local law enforcement officer in the process. July 7th, a gunman opening fire at the entrance of the United States Border Patrol annex in Texas. July 8th, masked rioters assaulting ICE agents at a San Francisco courthouse. July 10th, scores of rioters attacking ICE agents at that marijuana farm in California. One even pulled a weapon and fired it in the direction of law enforcement. On July 11th, more violence against federal officials, this time in Portland, Oregon. And tonight, a California state professor is now facing federal charges after throwing a tear gas canister at law enforcement. And we could pretty much go on for the rest of the hour, on and on and on. Make no mistake. there is a huge violence problem on the left, but instead of supporting federal officials, instead of recognizing the Constitution, which of course gives the authority and jurisdiction to the feds in this particular case, it's called the Supremacy Clause, Democrats, they only add fuel to the fire. They are more interested in the so-called rights of illegals than they are in about the safety and security of Americans in small towns and big cities, and they have been vilifying ICE around every turn, and as a result, the threats of violence get larger and larger on top of doxing ICE agents and their families. And instead of calling on cooler heads to prevail, the party of peace, even Obama is telling his fellow Democrats to, quote, toughen up, have some courage. Not that he had any. But none of this is going to stop the Trump administration from doing their job, protecting the country. These deportations will continue. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click.
All right. All right. Okay. Here we go. Jesse Waters.
Donald Trump was in the VIP box this weekend for the biggest soccer final in the world. The championship.
Yo, Trump said, my country, my cup. He wasn't going to leave. He was there celebrating with the winners. I think Chelsea won the cup or whatnot. But he was there, and they were celebrating with him, and he was celebrating with them as well. Just legendary.
Match was in New Jersey yesterday, and 47 brought Melania for a day date. The Brits upset the French 3-0. And the president wasn't going to miss out on the celebration, so he showed up to the trophy lift like he owned the team. Trump liked the trophy so much that he took it home with him.
They said, could you hold this trophy for a little while? We put it in the Oval Office. And then I said, when are you going to pick up the trophy? He says, we're never going to pick it up. You can have it forever in the Oval Office. We're making a new one. And they actually made a new one. So that was quite exciting.
It's 24 karat gold. And you know, Trump loves his gold. Plus, it looks better in the Oval anyway. Trump lifted the gold on the anniversary of dodging death. Same day, same hour. Since then, he's been a man on a mission.
When history looks back on this time in our country, when history looks back on you, how would you like to be remembered?
A good person, but a person that saved our country. I really believed our country was going down for the fall. I don't know if it ever could have come back. It was very close to the edge.
The country was teetering because Biden let the whole third world pour in for 4 years. Trump stopped the flooding, and now he's sending them home. And the one thing that brought America to its knees is the one thing Democrats are still fighting for.
Put people over profit. They volunteer, get off it. Put people over profit. They volunteer, get off it. Put people over profit. NYPD KKK. NYPD KKK.
Instead of enjoying the gold, Democrats are fanning the flames and letting their assassination fetish get the best of them. A couple of ICE agents got doxxed in Portland this weekend, and radicals showed up outside their doors and told them to go die.
I have become more radical. I have become more extreme. So my megaphone speeches of saying, please think about the children, have slowly turned into kill yourself.
This is why they wear masks. Wingnuts tried raining on Homan's parade, too. But Tom didn't let him go without a spanking.
Wait 3 or 5 years. Pardon me?
Are you an MS-13 member? It says so.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. Bring it. Bring it. They got morons like this all over the country. This guy wouldn't know it's like the surface nation. This guy ain't got the balls to be an ICE officer. He hasn't got the balls to be a Border Patrol agent. This guy lives in his mother's basement. Get out of here, you loser.
Homan has to live separately from his wife because of the threats he gets from guys like this.
This is what they brought us yesterday. That is what they met us with yesterday. That is what they shot at
us with yesterday. Our incredible volunteers have been nonstop since 5 in the morning every day across this county, patrolling and surveying our spots and jamming up every ICE officer that we find.
Last week, ICE got shot at by Trantifa, and the media treated it like Hunter's laptop and didn't cover it. CNN and MSNBC didn't mention it once. Instead, the media is trying to unmask the victims.
Name a police agency that has a 700% increase in assaults. Name one.
I haven't looked at that data, yeah.
You won't find one. The attacks on ICE is unprecedented, 700% increase. And we're not even talking about the doxing of agents, their spouses, and their children. So they're wearing masks to help give them some sort of protection. But the same people that are complaining about ICE wearing masks, have they ever said anything about BLM protesters wearing masks?
Well, Democrats are protecting the privacy of BLM, Kifa, Antifa, and MS-13, but not ICE. This weekend, Trump actually opened the big, beautiful doors to Alligator Alcatraz and let Congress come in for a quick little look-see. Debbie Diamond Hand Schultz was mad that Jose doesn't have a gold-plated bidet.
They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. That is the only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are 3 tiny toilets. They essentially drink, they get their drinking water, and they brush their teeth, where they poop in the same unit.
Everybody brushes their teeth where they poop, Debbie. It's called a bathroom. She's probably talking about these sink toilet units that every prison in America has. The migrant criminals are getting treated the same way as American criminals, and Debbie's angry that they're not being treated better. And how does Debbie think we should be detaining criminal aliens if we don't use cages? And are these even really cages? It's like any fence you see anywhere. She doesn't like the supermax in El Salvador. She doesn't want to keep them in jails and sanctuary cities, and Alligator Alcatraz isn't nice enough. It seems like defense attorney Debbie wants MS-13 to stay in Times Square hotels for eternity. This is just a temporary facility that these guys stay at for a few weeks before they get shipped home.
It is a center to process illegal aliens and then to provide a pad to deport them from the runway that's right there. We did not create the 4 seasons. That's not the intent of this. All the standards are a lot higher than what was even required, but that's, really beside the point.
If they're not serving margaritas at Alligator Alcatraz and every unit doesn't have marble vanities and Toto toilets, Democrats call it a dungeon.
The reality is, when they come for one of us, they're eventually going to come for all of us. And we've seen, the construction of Alcatraz, Alligator Alcatraz. We're seeing people being abducted and sent to dungeons in foreign countries.
Omar and Debbie never lamented the living conditions of government housing projects or living conditions in Appalachia or my dorm room, which was very small. They only complain about Alligator Alcatraz and Guantanamo Bay. They make sure the foreign terrorists are comfortable and they have everything they need. The Democrats complained so much during the war on terror. You remember, we were letting Al-Qaeda play soccer and video games. These are some of the dudes at Alligator Alcatraz that Debbie and Omar don't want to fence around. One MS-13 gangbanger is nicknamed Satan. He's wanted for being in a murder ring. We have Biden migrants with convictions for sexual assault, robbery, arson. One guy in Alligator Alcatraz was arrested for slicing an elderly woman's throat. The media wants these guys sleeping in California Kings with silk sheets.
What do you say to these lawmakers who argue this is not humane treatment of individuals, of humans?
Well, our detention centers at the federal level are held to a higher standard than most local or state centers and even federal prisons. This is a state-run facility at Alligator Alcatraz.
More than 30
but they have
people stuffed into a jail
They have
cell?
a contrast. Well, I've been there and I've seen these rooms that they are in. I wouldn't call them jail cells. I would call them a facility where they are held and that are secure facilities.
Democrats have called them cages, though. They say
I wish they would have said that back
and...
during the Biden administration and back when Democrats were in the White House and they were piling people on top of each other on cement floors.
Bodies were getting stacked like sardines in Obama-Biden cages. Where was the media then? That looks like a cage to me. And they didn't even have beds. They were sleeping on the floor. And these were migrants who hadn't even committed a crime. Migrants were so desperate where Biden was holding them, they were suicidal and slitting their wrists. Democrats, they don't want them in cages. They just want them out there working in the fields. Over 300 illegals, some of them minors, got iced at a pot farm in California. The farm's been investigated for forced child labor and human trafficking. Democrats went from the party of workers' rights to, let's let foreign kids pick our crops. We need to keep weed prices low. They want to keep families together so they can harvest cannabis together. Karen Bass says she can't even get her car washed in L.A.
They are literally driving down the street, jumping out of unmarked cars, tinted windows, no license plates, and literally snatching people from bus stops, going into car washes. It's difficult to get your car washed in LA now because many of the car washes have closed down.
Who's going to wax Karen's Corolla if Jose gets iced? We don't know.
Oh, Jesse.
We didn't really believe car washes were vacant, so we called 5 LA car washes today, and they all picked up and told us to come right in. Since Karen can't tip Jose for vacuuming her trunk, she's sending him stimmy checks instead.
But we also are going to have a reinstitution of the Angelino card, something that Mayor Garcetti started during COVID that will actually provide cash assistance to people. Because, you know, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash. It's a couple $100s, I don't know the exact amount, and this should be available in about a week.
Bass wants to mail reparations to migrants. LA's still in debt from the riots and losing all that homeless money, billions. And whole neighborhoods are still burnt down. Are the illegals getting checks faster than Americans who've lost their homes? Seems like it. It's been 6 months, and they haven't even started rebuilding Malibu. The no-name California senator who lunged at Nome says he can't leave his house either, because if he goes to Home Depot, Homan's sending him to Alcatraz.
What if I was outside of Home Depot, because I like to do some work around the house, not dressed in a suit? Would I be a target of ICE enforcement under Tom Homan? Probably. And it's just wrong. It's not just due process rights that have become the concern, but racial profiling.
Is Karen going to send senators stimmy checks if they're afraid to leave their homes too? Mark Cuban says Democrats could at least help Homan a little.
They should be putting Tom Homan on blast, saying, okay, the FBI has their top 10 most wanted list, right? List the top 1,000, criminals that are here that need to be deported. We'll all help you. But the Democrats would never say something to the effect, we'll help you. They only have to do something that's the antithesis of what Trump says and does. You've never heard a Democrat say in the past 7 months, yeah, okay, I don't like it, but this is a step in the right direction.
Democrats still haven't figured it out. Most of the country wants alligator Alcatraz and mass deportations. The Times, ABC, CBS, all their polls say a majority of Americans back it. But if Democrats are going to keep trying to move them into 5-star resorts, this country is going to put them in the dungeon.
5-star resort. Jesse. Absolutely funny. And he doesn't even try. He doesn't try. He just gets it. He doesn't try, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
ICE agents are facing a wave of violent attacks across the country, while Democrats seem more interested in stoking outrage than calming things down. Federal authorities just nabbed over 350 illegal immigrants during a massive operation at a California pot farm. Some had rap sheets for crimes such as attempted child molestation and kidnapping. Agents had rocks thrown at their vehicles, roads blocked by protesters, and one suspect appears to have fired a gun at them. Meanwhile, some Democratic lawmakers were getting a tour of the Alligator Alcatraz detention center in Florida. They are alleging poor conditions at the facility, but DHS refutes that. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she went there, and she seemed upset with lots of things, including the plumbing.
They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. There are 3 tiny toilets that are toilet units that have a sink attached to it. So they essentially drink, they get their drinking water, and they brush their teeth, where they poop in the same unit.
And even Trump's border czar couldn't escape the heat. Tom Homan got heckled at a conservative conference this weekend, but he quickly deported the drama with this quick comeback.
Wait 3 or 5 years. Pardon me?
Are you an MS-13 member? It says so.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. Bring it. Bring it. You got morons like this all over the country. This guy wouldn't like the surface nation. This guy ain't got the balls to be an ICE officer. He hasn't got the balls to be a Border Patrol agent. This guy lives in his mother's basement. Get out of here, you loser.
I need more of that in my confidence basket. I don't necessarily have it. What do you think about how it all went down this weekend?
There's a word, onomatopoeia, which is phonetically describes a word, describes the sound something makes, like oink or meow or roar. You hear them often on The View. We need to invent a word for a person who physically resembles his occupation. I think it's called a Homan. Because like Homan's face is like the opposite of a welcome mat. You see that face and you're going, I'm not sticking around in this country. He is a walking rock slide. And it goes back to how Trump uses the message and not the muscle to incentivize self-deportation. When you look at Wasserman Schultz, she is doing the work by amplifying the conditions of Alligator Alcatraz. She's saying, oh my God, this sucks. And we're going, thank you, Debbie. That's the message we need to get out. Because like the images of the roundups, Alligator Alcatraz, Homan himself, it incentivizes people not to wait around. Biden incentivized mass deportation, and now we're doing the opposite. I was thinking about this weekend, because I do a lot of thinking when I'm alone.
Yeah, you do.
Remember how for the left it was always about exploitation? Like capitalism exploits the poor.
Yeah.
That was always a thing. Now suddenly exploitation is they're doing the jobs we don't want to do. You know, and it's like, well, and because they're illegal, you get the added benefit that the fact that they're doing it cheaply. So it's no longer exploitation. It's that, wow, they're just here for us doing cheap work. And it's like, you know, you can use that argument for sex trafficking. Like they are doing this work because they have to survive. They're doing the jobs cheaply that nobody else would want to do. That describes people working at pot farms and doing sex work in Queens. So whenever you say that, you know, these people just want to earn the living, remember that you're directly benefiting awful people who exploit them, which is why you need legal immigration.
One of the things that happened last week is that Gavin Newsom soft launched his presidential campaign.
He did?
And that was this, yes, when he was in South Carolina.
Oh, right.
And he went on this tirade to defend a campaign donor's illegal pot farm at the same time. It's like, it makes it pretty easy for you.
At first, we thought it was the illegal class that was protesting it getting raided, and then we just thought it was stoners who didn't want the cannabis farm to go bye-bye. But you remember the Democratic Party, Dana, we used to be for the working class, for labor goals and work-safe conditions. They have 14-year-olds picking crops next to pedophiles at this cannabis farm. And so they shut it down, and the Democrat response is put the 14-year-old illegal aliens back to work at the farm. It's pretty bad. Now, Greg was doing a lot of thinking this weekend.
I was.
I wasn't. I was doing a lot of feeling. And I was feeling pretty good. And I had a feeling that the Democrats were going to take the bait on Alligator Alcatraz. It was just too juicy to resist. You now have the only people complaining about conditions, the bad hombres and defense attorney Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And she must have a palatial estate, because how many paces from her toilet to where she brushes her teeth does she live. Everybody brushes their teeth near the toilet, all right? Billionaires and people at Alligator Alcatraz. She's saying they're cages. Now, what's the difference between a cage and a fence, okay? There's no difference. You're having fences to keep people from escaping because, I don't know, this guy's there. His name's Oscar Satan Sanchez. He's MS-13, wanted for murder. When the guy's nickname is Satan, you want him in a cage or a fence or whatever you call it. Does she want condos with central air? Or does she want us to build brick housing units for these people? Then they'll be accused of baking the migrants. They had worse conditions under Joe Biden. Do you remember when we used to see these photos? First, Biden wouldn't let the press in. They're giving press tours day one, the minute they break ground. I remember seeing entire families heaped upon each other with no cots, sleeping with blankets made of tinfoil. That was what Biden had. This is so much better.
How much better is it, Harold?
I don't know. It's good to be back with everybody. I think two things. First, I think slightly different about the conditions. We have an amendment to our Constitution which speaks to cruel and unusual punishment, but really speaks to fines and the kinds of hurdles you can make it for everyday people to be able to appeal decisions. And then there's a part of it that speaks to the wanton treatment or careless treatment that some may impose on those in detention or prisons. I don't know the case. I listened to the congressman. We'll have to see if someone brings a case, the court will make that determination. For me, the issue still remains because I support what Mr. Homan is doing as it relates to the worst and first. Those cases, those examples you gave, Jesse, I agree with. And I think I'm with the 70% of Americans who say that you got to take those guys out first, men and women, but it seems like they're mostly men. But then you get to the part about the hierarchy of deportations and the people that are in our communities, people who run businesses, who work in businesses that many of us consider central to our daily lives. I'm sensitive to what Greg talked about in terms of, and you've talked about it too, the inflation of wages and how we are all this deflationary pressure because we're hiring people and we're not paying them what we would normally might pay a citizen. I contend that there are a lot of people working in the economy who we are paying normal wages. I contend there are a lot of people who just are not citizens who have become part of our culture and part of our society I read this story over the weekend in one of the national papers about a fellow out of Arkansas who is against illegal immigration and wants strong border security. He met a woman online. She happened to be illegal. She lived in another state. She ran her own business, then worked in a restaurant. He drove to get her, brought her back to Arkansas. You know what he's doing? He's so committed there. He's leaving the country. He's going to go to El Salvador with her so she can get in line.
That's true love.
That's more than true love. I admire what that guy's doing, but he also makes a point in the article that we need to have a better system of how people become citizens, particularly people who are following the rules. I think that's where the country, as you look at the polling data on President Trump and this, it's moving a little bit, saying they don't fully approve of all that's happening right now. They want the worst first out, but they're not clear on some of the other things. And I think that's what we're seeing a little bit of that here. But I'd let the prison condition stuff, let the courts handle that.
Emily, last word to you.
I'd like to dedicate my segment to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and
Okay,
her comments.
great.
So during the Biden administration, during those years, they were sued over the conditions that the minors, the illegal immigrant minors were in, right? They were eating bloody chicken. They were urinating in plastic bags. They were on suicide watch, cutting themselves with their ID cards. And she was radio silent the entire time. In fact, what I heard from her in March of 2023 was saying to the world that fentanyl was actually being trafficked through legal ports of entry by Americans. And then she went on to criticize Governor DeSantis's legislation proposed that would impose stricter penalties on human traffickers because she said, in the typical racist tropes of the Democrat Party, she said, you're going to have vegetables rotting in the fields. You're going to have construction sites that will lie dormant. Tourism and the restaurant industry in particular rely on these workers. To Greg's point, instead of lifting up those workers and saying, look, cheap labor should not be part and parcel to the fabric of our society. In fact, it's morally wrong. And here, let me propose legislation to get these guys actually accurate pay and all the things. None of that. So now she says you brush your teeth where you go to the bathroom. Same thing. I don't know one I mean, I don't know. I've never been to a billionaire's house that has separate from that. So welcome to the USA. And it reminds me of a case I worked on in California where an inmate who liked to have sex with babies, which was why he was incarcerated, complained about his hip and wanted special accommodations for the hip pain. And here's all the things that I need. And all of us sitting there listening to him essentially said, you know what? I can't muster up even one care right now. And if I did, that care would be reserved for homeless veterans or military service people who are living in moldy conditions, or maybe the victims of these illegal immigrants who didn't even get a shot at life. So save it, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because I think there's a lot more cares that Americans have before they start caring about her talking about brushing your teeth where they poop right now.
All right.
There you have it. The five always interested to watch and analyze for sure. Look, so much to talk about. So much. All right, the five more conversation. Here we go.
Democrat whisperer is sounding the alarm for his party's future. Barack Obama is whipping the Democrats back into shape and doing so from the comfort of a private closed press fundraiser. The former president telling donors, quote, I think it's going to require a little bit less navel gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up. And Obama isn't the only power player issuing Democrats a warning. Billionaire Mark Cuban is urging candidates to focus on policy instead of just being an alternative to Trump. Listen.
It's just Trump sucks. That's the underlying, thought of everything the Democrats do. Trump sucks. Trump says, the sky is blue. Trump sucks. You can't, that's not the way to win. It's just not, because it's not about Trump. It's about the people of the United States of America and what's good for them.
Jesse, an amazing and a totally accurate point. So where was that during the election? Not that we missed it.
Yeah. I mean, he said that for years. I have an idea for Democrats. So usually if you want to get attention, you need to create conflict because that's what the media does. We just air conflict. And if there's no conflict, we won't give it any attention. So how do you create conflict without going after Donald Trump? Here are some suggestions. You go after Trump cabinet secretaries, all right? And you make issues out of what they're doing. Or you go after other Democrats. Let the primaries start now. Go after Newsom. Or, go after Fetterman, go after somebody. The media will gobble that up. Or you go after some foreign leader. Take an axe to Xi or go after the cartels or something. Get yourself banned from travel somewhere, okay? And then go after some CEO. Go after some big fat cat CEO that's just like hurting his workers and just running up prices. Go after that guy. And then you go on Rogan and you laugh at yourself. That is the recipe for getting attention without going after Donald Trump. Because every time you clash with Trump, you lose and you look like you don't care about the rest of the American people.
And we've talked a lot about how the Democrats are trying to find the answer to Trump. They're trying to find the analog to him. But part of Obama's comments, too, he said, stop looking for the quick fix. Stop looking for the Messiah. You have a great candidates running races right now. Just focus on what you have in front of you.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, if you listen to Obama and you look at these inorganic protests, they say you have to have courage, rally, act, resist, but they don't. For what? What is the actual issue? When Trump owns every issue 80-20 by almost every metric, from the economy to crime to immigration, where are you? The high ground maneuver of common sense has relegated it into more extreme measures. Ask Obama, okay, where do I apply this courage? What space do I park it in? Should I double down on trans dudes in women's sports? Should I back the attacks on ICE? Should I show courage on those things? No, it won't work. As for Mark Cuban, I don't know why he doesn't apply the same mentality that he uses on Shark Tank with Democrats. Because that was what was great about Trump, is that, he forced the party to react to him. And it's like Cuban just like just dropped his whole common sense when it came to the Democratic Party. He should imagine the Democratic Party showing up in Shark Tank, hello, sharks, I want 100% investment. And they have to describe it. Well, we hid a decrepit president who was brain dead, replaced him without a primary with a day drunk and a goofball. We think dudes can be moms. We think borders are stupid and criminals are misunderstood. We hate men unless they're in skirts. We love women until they have kids. We can divide a country by race, gender, and politics. And, if you're looking for riots or if you're looking for looting, we're the people. And then, right then, Cuban would say, I'm out. But that's exactly what the Democratic Party is. But somehow he didn't say this stuff. He was always equivocating on every issue.
So, Dana, maybe this is why the Democrat Party has a 35% approval rate right
Well,
now.
first of all, anytime President Obama speaks or Michelle Obama speaks, it's going to get headlines. Okay, so he's at an event and it's open press. So he gives a message that's like any of us could say, yeah, toughen up. It's not really great advice. It reminds me of when Biden and Harris told Putin not to invade Ukraine. They said, don't. They said, if you're thinking of crossing the border illegally, don't. And none of that mattered. The other messages that the Democrats have received lately are not only just get tough, curse more, make a stupid video, or get shot. That was the advice last week. That would be one way to toughen up, I suppose. But the one thing that you mentioned, how Trump made the party react to him. What Democrat right now is making other fellow Democrats do that? It's only Mamdani. And why? Because he's not out there every day saying, Trump sucks, Trump sucks. He's saying, I'm going to freeze your rent. Now, that's insane, but he has some sort of a policy idea. All of these guys, the reason Mark Cuban, I think, is frustrated is because there's a frustration and a hatred of Trump. And if they just channeled that into something like, here's our opportunity program for America, 1, 2, 3, whatever it might be, but they don't do that. And every president leads to the next one, right? So Clinton paved the way for Bush, Bush paved the way for Obama. Obama paved the way for Trump 1.0. And his vice president ended up paving the way for Trump 2.0. So if I were Democrats, I'd be trying to maybe look to the future and figure out a way to deal with the Mamdani problem because it's only going to grow.
We're going to get a Trump 3.0.
Yeah, baby.
So, Harold, the latest Harris-Harvard poll that we were talking about that reflected that 35%, the majority of respondents claim that the Democrat Party was, quote, out of touch, woke, and weak. Do you agree?
No, I don't. So just remind you, in 2000, I said this last week, I think, 2013, the beginning of President Obama's second term, Jeb Bush was the front runner to be the nominee in 2016, and Donald Trump emerged out of and had the message and the agenda. In 2021, the first year of Joe Biden's administration, President Trump's popularity rating took a little bit of a hit because of some things that happened in the beginning of the year, and he reemerged. So I understand where we're going, but I look at it this way. I take Mark Cuban at his word. We do need new ideas. You're right. He should approach it the way he does on that show.
Yeah.
We need innovation in our approaches, plans for the future, actionable plans for the future. We should be willing, as we spell out these ideas, to give Trump credit where credit is due. What he's done on the border has shown us that had we changed our mind and been able to change Ms. Harris's mind or Mr. Biden's mind about what they should have been doing, we might have had a different outcome. The same is true with what we did in Iran. I think helping to eliminate or obliterate or set back their nuclear program was a good thing. But Democrats, get out and point to Mr. Trump. You said that over the last 4 years, DEI had ruined our military. For 24 years, they've been planning, figuring out ways to go after those mountains, and they did it, even with DEI. Say to the president, you are right. We welcome you in wanting to send arms and munitions to continue the things that Dems and Republicans have done for Mr. Zelensky. But say, why wait 50 days? There's no need to wait 50 days to let Russia come around. Put the hammer down on them even sooner. I'd invite the housing secretary to my district if I were in Congress, saying, you know what? I've identified 3 areas that the federal government owns and the city owns and the state owns. We can do affordable housing here. Let's figure out how we reduce the regulations to make that happen. I'd say to those who the president wants to make no taxes on tips, if you're a teacher or a nurse and you earn $85,000 a year and there's someone in your area that earns $85,000 a year mainly on tips, why should they get the tax break and you don't? Democrats introduce legislation to cure that. That's what Cuban should be saying, and I think what he's trying to say. But I don't disagree with you about what President Obama said. Saying that in the confines of a billionaire's home is very different than getting out and saying where people live, who are working every day to raise their kids, keep
Yeah.
their neighborhood safe, et cetera.
I think that teachers should work for tips.
No tax on overtime.
Let me write that one
No
down.
tax on tips.
Nurses too? Nurses
Yes.
too?
All right, guys.
Mine do.
Mine too.
Biden's auto pen scandal gets worse. Dr. Fauci and others might be in serious trouble.
Click here.
Man, he ain't no deep serious trouble. Like, sometimes I just get tired of the rhetoric. Sometimes. It's like, sometimes. All right. Let's see if we could do one more or two more. All right, Powell. What does Powell have to say?
We have a bad Fed chairman, really bad. If he would lower the rates, and I tried being nice to the guy, it doesn't help. He's like a knucklehead. No, he's a knucklehead. A stupid guy.
If Jerome Powell stepped down, it would be a great thing.
Oh, in 2020, let's not forget the median monthly new car loan was $570. Today, it's $745. Now, same for mortgages. In 2021, the median cost was $1,525 per month. Today, it's around $2,205. So Trump says Powell's refusal to slash rates is exploding the federal budget as well by $400 billion a year. So hitting families, hitting the U.S. government. Here to weigh in is the first official that I know of to call for Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, to step aside is Bill Pulte, U.S. Federal Housing Director. Director Pulte, come on, how bad is this really hurting everyday Americans?
It's bad and it's getting worse. It's not only hurting people, but I actually think, and I'm here, I'll make a prediction, Laura. I think that this building fiasco that Jay Powell has grossly mismanaged will be the end of his career. That's my view.
Explain it. Explain it to the viewers.
I think he basically spent $2.5 billion on renovating a building. I mean, how does one do that? You know, I've spent my whole life in construction. President Trump has done construction his whole life. Jay Powell knows nothing about construction. So what was going on with $2.5 billion? Who got this money? Where did it go? There needs to be a full-blown audit of this building. And I think they put out an FAQ page today, Laura. It smells bad. It smells very bad. I think, this is my opinion, I think there's fraud, and I think you're going to see a lot more come out in the weeks and days to come.
Do you think Jerome Powell himself directed certain contracts or gave a wink about certain contracts? Because the price of renovating the Federal Reserve building is so high?
I don't know, but he's so pompous. He's so arrogant. You have one of the most popular, if not, I believe, the most popular president in history. This gentleman, President Trump, just won a landslide victory, and the president doesn't want him there. And he's just so pompous, so arrogant. It's time for Powell to go. He's too late with his resignation, okay? And he's going to be too late resigning. But I think, as I said, I think this building will be the end of his career. I don't mean that in a mean way, but you know what? We have to get on with the American business. We have to get on with the American economy. As you know, I oversee Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Americans are hurting because of what happened the last 4 years with Biden. We need something new. Powell's got to go, and I'm hearing, you know, from a lot of people that he's thinking about leaving. So let's hope to God he does it and does it soon.
Well, there's a betting pool going on, but he said he's not leaving. Many times he said, I'm not leaving. And at one point you thought, well, if he was even fired, which, you know, I think the president has the authority to fire him. Others disagree. But if he was fired, yeah,
and I believe he's violated the National Capital Planning Act, which, you know, gives him for cause. This is just my view. So I think he's got all the legal rights in the world. That'll all be up to the president and his lawyers. But we'll see what happens. This building gets worse by the day, Laura.
Well, Kevin Hassett is the director of the National Economic Council. Discuss this situation with the Federal Reserve. Watch.
The Fed has a lot to answer for. And the bottom line is that there's a key statutory problem. It never envisioned by the people that voted for the construction of the Fed that we currently see that the Fed could print money and toss it around willy-nilly because they had to have the gold to do what they're doing. And they're unbounded right now.
Well, yeah, Bill, this has always been the problem with the Federal Reserve. Their unchecked power with enormous influence and effect on the American people without, it seems like, any accountability other than a 10-year term.
Correct. And let me give you an example of what I believe is fraud by Jerome Powell. I believe Jerome Powell is committing fraud right now at the Fed with this building. Let me give you a real-time example, okay? We saw on his FAQ page that he released today that there are no, quote, VIP dining rooms, that there's no dining rooms, new dining rooms or renovated dining rooms or something along those lines. But instead they called them rooms for mealtime meetings. So they're saying that there's no dining rooms, but that there's rooms for mealtime meetings, and those ones are being renovated. This is the level, I believe, that there's deceit and fraud. We found it at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I believe it's there at the Fed, and I believe that, as I said, this building will be the end of Jerome Powell's career.
Well, Bill, we'll be watching.
Well, his time is supposed to expire this year, so, I mean, he doesn't have long anyway. All right, back to Joe. Back to Joe. Back to Joe.
A little bit of a surprise. Former President Biden opening up about clemency and auto pen use in a new interview with the New York Times. The former president claims he made every decision as questions and probes continue to mount over his mental acuity while in office. Trey Gowdy is the host of Sunday Night in America. This has been raging for a while, and I imagine that Biden or his family thought you better get out there and explain it. Here's what he said on the clemency decision and who made them. I made every single one of those, and including the categories when we set this up to begin with. And so, but I understand why Trump would think that, because obviously I guess he doesn't focus much. Anyway, so yes, I made every decision. It goes on to say that Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons, and that is getting some attention. Trey, in your opinion, legally...
Actually, correction. So, Jerome Powell's, his term is supposed, well, Jerome Powell is the Federal Reserve Chair. His term is supposed to expire in 2026 May. So May next year, that's when his term is supposed to expire. So that's a long time. That's about 1 year from now, maybe less, just a little less than a year. But just so I correct what I said, his term expires next year, May 2026.
Are those pardons valid if the president verbally gave the okay?
Yeah, I don't see any requirement in the Constitution that pardons be in writing. Obviously, it's better if it's in writing. Everything's better if it's in writing. But if you look at the strict text of the Constitution, the president's pardons are plenary. And if he wants to issue an oral pardon, I mean, the sub-question is some of these pardons are so awful, I would blame it on other people. I would blame my staff for literally clearing out death row. I wouldn't own that. And if he really believes in pardon so much, why did he wait until after the election to do it? From a legal standpoint, I don't think it has to be in writing. But guess what, Dana? Folks on the left were mad. In fact, Trump was indicted for possessing classified information in Florida, which he said he orally declassified. So if you can give an oral pardon, why can't you orally declassify information?
So here's what the Times wrote up on that. Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people. Large numbers, Trey, I'll get to that in a moment here. Rather, after extensive discussion of different possible criteria, he signed off on the standards he wanted to be used. Rather than ask Mr. Biden to keep signing revised versions, his staff waited and then ran the final version through the auto pen, which they saw as a routine procedure. There were 1,500 people serving home confinement since the pandemic. There were 2,500 apparently who are nonviolent drug offenders. The auto pen is not illegal, but Republicans are they're asking the question, who was running the government? James Comer's in the middle of this, the Republican from Kentucky. Go ahead and listen to what he said. Watch.
President Biden's White House position pleaded the Fifth Amendment. This is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire, that there was a cover-up. We'll move forward. We have several other witnesses that are going to come in for depositions and transcribed interviews. We will do everything in our ability to be transparent with the media, be transparent with the American people.
So he said it, he's going to move forward. What do you think of the alleged cover-up?
It's a legitimate lane of inquiry. I mean, just take Biden at his word. I approved all decisions except the ones I didn't approve. I mean, I'll summarize the New York Times story. I did all the ones except the ones my staff did. So, yes, it's a legitimate investigation. We spent 4 years trying to figure out whether Donald Trump colluded with Russia. Can we not spend 4 months figuring out if Joe Biden colluded with himself when it came to pardons or commutations or fill in the blank? Is that too much?
Speaking of that, there was you had on last night Devin Nunes, and he basically was talking about that Russia collusion piece and what was going on at the time. And now we know Brennan is under an FBI investigation, the former CIA director. Here's Devin Nunes.
He knew the CIA sent to Comey and to the FBI that the Russians and others knew that the Clinton campaign and the DNC were actively involved in stirring up a Russian controversy with Trump. That was real intelligence. It never made it to us. Everything was about Russia all the time, and it was all a bunch of nonsense. And hopefully now they'll be able to get to the bottom of this.
And what's the next step in that process? They said that there's an investigation. Could this drag out for a while, or do you expect action sooner?
Probably both. I mean, there'll be some action now. I mean, Brennan testified before House Intel. It was a rare public hearing. There's no doubt, Dana, that he lied to Congress, in my judgment, and I was the one asking him questions. Not only did they know about the Steele dossier, they're the ones that made sure it was included in the ICA, and they're the ones who made sure it was leaked to the media. So for John Brennan to say, oh, no, we didn't include any of the Steele information in our intelligence assessment, it's just a lie. Now, whether or not they can prove it, that's a different story. I can't prove everything I know, but I know that John Brennan lied to Congress.
Trey Gowdy, it's great to see you today as we get underway, and thank you for being on our show. Kicking off a good week for us. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, God is the greatest. Thank you for tuning into the live show. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Yes. Seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God. God is the greatest. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Get some rest, ladies and gentlemen. Get some rest. Today is Tuesday and the time is 2:21 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 15th of July, 2025. God bless you. Look, a lot is going on in America and in the world. So please be kind to one another. And like our moderator, C. Shelley, always says, stay united. Okay, stay united. It does not matter. For me, I always say this, like, it does not matter if you are a Republican or a Democrat. Okay, you are American first. Okay, so it's America first before parties. All right. And with that being said, shout out to our esteemed members. Dr. Luke, the GOAT, God bless you. Shout out to Ellie. God bless you, Ellie. Shout out to Sandra. God bless you. Shout out to Ringmaster. God bless you. Shout out to Ingram. God bless you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, beautiful, gorgeous moderators, Dana. Yeah, that's the godmother of the channel. Shout out to Dana, the gorgeous Dana. Shout out to C. Shelley, amazing C. Shelley. God bless you. C. Shelley always tunes in. God bless you, C. Shelley, except when she's getting her beauty sleep. So, we let C. Shelley get the beauty sleep. All right, MVP Jet. MVP Jet. God bless you, Jet. Thank you for the super chat today. God bless you, Jet. Jet is the MVP for sure. I'll tell you that much. Jet. All right, Anders. What's up with Anders? What in the world going on, bro? Are you okay? Shout out to Anders, man. Anders, God bless you. Anders has been here for a long time as well. So Anders, God bless you, Brody. Thank you. All right, with that being said, Our bad. Oh, God bless you, our bad. Oh, God bless you, our bad. Oh, who else, man? Everybody who tuned in, God bless you guys. Thank you for always being here. Thank you for supporting the channel. And thank you for loving America, okay? Because really, you can act like you don't like America or you don't love America, but you're always here. So you actually love the United States, okay? So, yes, man, we do this because we love the United States, and that's it. Purely, that's it. That's it. All right. So, don't forget, we are all going through something in this world. Nobody has a perfect life. I don't care if you're older or you're younger or you're middle aged. Nobody has a perfect life. Everybody's going through something grave, mental issue, health issues, um, financial issues, loneliness. Everybody has something that they're going through. And if you're not the one going through it, you know someone who is going through it in your family or your friends, or your colleagues. So please be kind to one another, okay? Stay united, all right? Stay united, all right? And if you are the person going through hardship, just understand that God is your strength. God is your strength, okay? Don't throw in the towel just yet. One day after the other, okay? Just one day after the other, man. You don't know what tomorrow holds, but you're here today, okay? So just live your life today and let God handle tomorrow, okay? We don't know what the future holds, but we know what it is today, okay? We know that we're here today. We know we have air in our lungs today. People are in the hospital getting oxygen. You know what that means? People are literally in the hospital right now surviving on oxygen. People cannot even eat with their mouth. They have to have tube sent down their nose or their mouth. So, man, don't be taking life for granted. Tell you, man, don't be taking life for granted. You know, this politics be making us think, man, nobody cares about no goddamn politics. You know, just having life is precious. Okay, you have air in your lungs. You're probably watching this, you know, in a shelter or in your home where it's like you have a roof over your head. Some people are homeless. So man, just relax with all that rhetoric and everybody be thinking it's all about politics. It's not just about politics, man. We gotta show love to our fellow human beings, okay? And just pray that, you know, we enjoy this world, okay? Enjoy this earth. Go outside, meet new people, shake hands, smile. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. Just smile, man. Smile, man. Smile, man. What in the world with your face looking like Tom Holman's face? You don't want your face looking like Tom Holman's face, okay? You don't want to be looking like Tom Holman, ladies and gentlemen. You want to be smiling, okay? Like this beautiful lady right here. You want to be smiling. You don't want to be Tom Holman. Oh man, I love y'all, man. Oh, I cannot forget the Bama girl, Terry. Oh, Terry. Oh, Terry. Are you still here? Terry. Shout out to Terry, man. Terry Vinings, God bless you. The Bama girl, God bless you. Thank you for being here as well. Yeah, man. That's it. That's it. That's it. God is the greatest. I love you guys. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. It is your boy Genesis, and you are tuned in to the Genesis Show. See you guys soon.